top, and then, you know, a more solid base here, and then all on a stone wall. So really in keeping with materials and the aesthetics of the adjacent properties in Scarborough in general, keeping it very attractive looking. The sign is 3 feet 11 inches by 16 feet. And we did a quick, before we had the actual sign design, we did a quick study in our office just to show how it would fit on the site. So this isn't the actual sign design, but this is kind of what we were looking at. So as you can see, the existing shot from the intersection, visibility is very limited. He's hoping to open that up with removing some of the vegetation. He would be looking at removing the roundwood sign, which is on his property. And we have discussed this with the Roundwood Association as far as their understanding of the sign. And install his sign here, 15 feet from the property line, in, you know, close to what this is looking like, but it would look like this. And here you can see, you know, just the location, and this is the view. There's also this sign here, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, which is the directory sign for Roundwood. This property is not actually listed in that directory. So again, he's really looking for as much visibility and recognition into his site with this sign. So that's about all I have that's new. If you have any questions on previous things that we presented, I have additional plans that I can refer to, but those are the main things. The stormwater and the signage are probably the largest items.
All right, thank you. This is an item that is subject to public comment. If there is any member of the public that would like to make a comment or address the board, please raise your hand. If you are called upon, please give your name and your address, and you have 3 minutes for the comment. Is there anyone that wishes to make a comment? And Jay or Jamel, I'll depend upon you to see if there's a raised hand.
I'm not seeing any yet.
Another 15 seconds. All right, time for public comment is closed. And it is time for the board to deliberate. Roger, would you like to go?
Sure. First, I want to comment on the architecture. I thought it looked attractive previously, and I think the new entrance even improves upon that. So congratulations on that. And I was kind of curious what you're going to do with the sign, because I was out by that way recently and I noticed the Roundwood sign there as well. So I think this kind of cleans it up, because the old New England Hi-Fi sign kind of looks like it's almost like a temporary sign, the way it is. So that's good. I guess the only other outstanding thing is that the water flow on the west side, and you know, as far as I know, Angela's not here, nor is our expert on stormwater person. So it seems to me, with the improvements, with the catch basin and everything, and the under drain, it appears that that's going to solve that problem. Now, it can be corrected. So other than that, I think it looks terrific, and I'm looking forward to it.
If I may, I could just speak on that point. I did have an opportunity to touch base with Angela, and I know at one point we had talked about the potential for an under drain being a potential solution. I don't believe she's seen this design as of yet, but I think, you know, if the applicant is amenable to getting to that 0% rate of flow increase, staff's prepared a condition to that effect that addresses that. And you know, as Angela said, and I think Tom alluded to, it was close to begin with, and we think we can certainly get there and not have any major impacts on the site if the board's comfortable. that approach.
Good. I'm all set.
Thank you. I notice Mr. McGee is back. Mr. McGee, would you like to take over or comment at your pleasure?
Thanks, Richard. I'm going to let you finish this one out because I did come in and out there, so you'll be able to wrap this one up. The only my only concern going into this for comment section is that we just need to hit that 0 per ordinance, and the stormwater. I'm sure they can work it out with staff and then with Angela, but I think we need the applicant to agree to that term, that they will get that stormwater levels down to where we expect them. That's pretty much it.
Thank you. Jen.
I agree on the making sure that we're able to reduce the post-development peak flows, but I also just wanted to clarify something in the presentation. Did I understand this right, that the plan that you're showing here that includes stone at the edge, the westerly edge of the parking area and the under drain, is that not reflected in the calculations that are in the written material that was submitted? Because the reason I'm asking is because that it sounds like there's hope that this treatment will get to the zero CFS, but the narrative material refers to the positive values that were first mentioned as being problematic.
Right, that's correct. So we had added these the options of the stone and the under drain just to present the solution to get there. Yep.
So you just don't have the numbers quantified yet.
Correct. Yeah. Based on the subtle increases, we're confident that this will do it. But you're right. Yeah.
Okay, great. I just wanted to make sure that. Yeah, that was the only question that I had aside from what others have brought up, and also, yeah, have faith that working with staff can get this to an acceptable spot. Thanks.
Thank you. Rick?
Yeah. Are you still proposing 59 parking spots where it's required for 54? This is to the applicant. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is I appreciate the intent or going out there and talking with Tesla for an EV charger. And Tesla came back to you and said, well, there's not enough demand. Well, yeah, Tesla's kind of like a proprietary charger. Only a Tesla can charge on a Tesla charger. But a majority of vehicles being sold in Maine for the Maine consumer is not going to be a Tesla. And so I'm just wondering why, you pick Tesla and they determine it's not enough need. And I'm saying you've got a great opportunity here. You could have employees that will be there for 8 hours plus. Is there any way we could get a level 2 charger in there that it doesn't have to be Tesla? Teslas can charge on anything, but only Teslas can do a Tesla charger. So that's my only comment. Everything else my colleagues are taking care of. And I just wanted to make sure I understood that you're asking for more parking spots than required. And I'm not sure I would go along with that unless there could be some carve out for an EV charger.
All right, thank you, Rick. I actually have no comments. I watched this go through from the beginning and appreciated what you've been doing with the architecture and working with us. We have a draft motion here, which includes leaving some of the discussion of the sign up to the planning board staff, and I'm content for it to stay there. So if there are no more comments from the board, I will make a motion. I move to approve the site plan amendment titled Gentle Dental as depicted on the plan set prepared by Gowan Turgeon dated 7/13/20 with the following findings and conditions. Findings: the applicant is proposing building renovations and additions totaling 6,968 square feet to serve as a dental and professional office. The proposal also includes additional parking spaces, pedestrian amenities, and landscaping provisions. The proposal is located at 424 Payne Road and will utilize existing frontage. The property is located within the Regional Business B2 zoning district and is further identified on the Town of Scarborough tax maps as map R38, lot 11. The planning board has reviewed the application and supporting documentation and finds that the proposed design of the site plan adequately addresses the site plan review and zoning ordinance requirements for site utilization and layout, access, internal vehicular movement, parking, pedestrian ways, landscaping, stormwater management, lighting, architecture, signage, utilities, and storage. Conditions. Number 1, prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall review the plan set to include A, address the remaining stormwater management issues as noted in the staff review memo dated 8/3/20, demonstrating a 0% rate of flow increase. B, stamped plans by a professional engineer. This shall be reviewed and approved by the planning department. 2, prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall address the remaining review comments in the civil peer review memo by Woodward and Curran dated 7/30/20. 3, prior to the issuance of a sign permit, the applicant shall provide a final signage plan. This shall be reviewed and approved by the planning department. 4, prior to the start of construction, the applicant shall coordinate the required pre-construction meeting. The meeting shall include appropriate town staff, the developer, and their site contractor, and is to be coordinated through the planning department. Is there a second?
Second.
And that is Roger. Thank you. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? I'm going to do a roll call. Rick Meinking,
No.
Jen Ladd,
Yes.
Roger Beely,
Yes.
Nick McGee,
Yes.
Rachel Hendrickson, yes. The motion passes. Thank you very much, folks. Thank you for all of the effort and work that you put into this, and we're very happy to have you in Scarborough.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And I shall turn the meeting over to Mr. McGee.
Thanks, Rachel. I really appreciate it. All right, next on our agenda is Tandem Court LLC requests a final subdivision and site plan review for Lot 1 of the Town Center residential neighborhood within the Downs, Assessor's Map R52, Lot 4. Mel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as you recall, this is located within the newly approved Town Center residential neighborhood subdivision at the Downs. The applicant's proposing 2 nearly 5,000 square foot, 3-story, 12-unit residential condominiums, along with 3 parking garages. The board did grant preliminary approval back in early June. So staff did note that the applicant has not provided building elevations for the proposed garages as of the material submission a few weeks ago. So the board and applicant should be sure to discuss this evening. And during the board's last review, the applicant did note that they would work on a dimming program for the site's light fixtures as requested, but staff was unable to find this within the materials. So the board and the applicant should discuss a potential dimming program as well. At this point, I'll turn it back to you.
Thanks, Jamel. We have Rocky. Are you doing this one, or Nick or Dan?
Good evening, Dan Bacon with Tandem Court LLC. I'm going to do the presentation, and we have Drew Gagnon with us, I believe, as well as Nick Aceto to help with the presentation if the board has questions on engineering or landscaping. I'm going to be pretty brief, and I appreciate the board's review of this final subdivision site plan. You've seen it a number of times now through sketch plan and preliminary submission. We've been working hard on complying with all the ordinance standards and the master plan for the town center residential area. And I really just wanted to kind of touch on where we're at with the final staff comments, and we're happy to answer any board questions. We had provided elevations of the building with colors, but Chabelle's certainly right. We didn't spell out the specific colors, and they are, I mean, we've been figuring that out. They are a deep Brunswick color for the primary color on the condo buildings, and a pewter color as secondary. So the central kind of stairway and common areas within the building will be that pewter, which is a lighter gray color. Both traditional colors consistent with the design standards. In terms of the garages, they're very similar to garages that were approved by the board for Mill Commons down the street. We did provide just recently to Jamel earlier today, specific floor plans that show their layout in the same color scheme that will match the condo buildings. So we hope that addresses those comments. In terms of the lighting, we're proposing fairly minimal site lighting, and we're kind of balancing security and safety with reduced lighting, but we're happy to work with staff as a condition of approval on kind of fine tuning a dimming plan that kind of balances that kind of safety and security that many residents are looking for, with also reduced lighting levels. We're happy to do that. I think beyond that, I know Drew's updated the grading plan that was brought up by Woodard and Curran. It needed to be clearer on the plans. I think it was a little bit confusing, and we've clarified that. We do have the Portland Water District approval to serve this site, as do we have it for other sites within Town Center Residential. And I think those are the primary comments. And as we talked about with the board through the past reviews, we are seeking one waiver on the driveway aisle width. And at past board meetings, the board's been supportive of that, given the layout of the project and to reduce impervious areas. So, but I do want to mention that in advance of board discussion. So I think that covers what we want to cover, and we're happy to answer questions. And we're certainly hopeful for final approval on this if the board sees fit on that. Thank you.
I think Nick got booted again, Rachel. So, tough night overall.
All right, thank you. I believe this item also, now that I've got my papers spread all over the place, I believe this item also is up for comment by the public. I just can't find my agenda.
You are correct.
Oh, good. Good to know. If there is any member of the public that would like to make a comment on this, I would appreciate it if you would raise your hand. Our trusty co-hosts will take a look and see if there are hands being raised. And we will call on you one by one. If you approach the microphone in your computer, give your name and your address, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Are there any hands raised?
I am not seeing any as of yet.
Let's give people another couple of minutes to find the icon.
Still not seeing any.
All right. In that case, I declare the comment period closed, and throw the plan open to board consideration. Let's start with Jen this time.
I didn't have any specific comments other than being interested in the dimming program for the lighting. Sounds like that's in the works, and if material submitted later on is acceptable to staff, that's fine with me.
All right. If you're done, then Rick Meinke.
No, I don't have anything other than I just took a quick look at the photometrics one last time. And I noticed on the street side of there's no light at all. Now, I don't know if there's a light under the entranceway or what, but you're showing absolutely 0 candle watts on the street side entryways, and I'm wondering if you had noticed that too, applicant, and is that something that you can work out with staff to ensure that there is adequate security lights in that area, yet keeping in mind that the windows are, you know, somewhat of a issue when you want dark
Yeah.
room. That's my only comment to make.
I can respond to that if you'd like. That actually there are streetlights that are part of the Downs Road that are part of the subdivision, the overall subdivision approval. So on this plan, we only showed the site lighting, but there are lights that illuminate that on-street parking and the walkways along the front of the building. So between the two,
I appreciate
there's
that,
good-
Dan, but I think there has to be some sort of light by every doorway. And I'm not sure you can rest on an existing fixture that's down the center of a road. I think there's a code that would require some sort of lighting there.
Sure. We can work with staff on lighting right at the doorway. We're happy to do that.
Yeah.
The street lighting is on the building side, but we'll work with staff to make sure we're meeting all lighting requirements.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, Roger?
Sure. I think Dan's covered just about everything except one item, which is the dumpster and the landscaping around that. What's behind that, Dan? I noticed you have two, I guess, trees there on either side. What's going to be behind that? Is just wetlands, or is that going to?
Yeah, there's a 4 to 5 foot change in grade right behind that dumpster. So it drops down to the wetlands. So we've done our best to position the dumpster in a location that's easily accessible, but also doesn't impact the wetlands. So that's really why it's located there. Drew can answer more detailed questions if you have them on what's.
Yeah, okay, I was just wondering whether there was any development going on behind there.
Oh, no. Directly behind the dumpster is a fairly large wetland area.
Okay. I'm satisfied with everything. I have no problem with the waiver. The only question I have, can I assume that this will be the next project to be developed on the whole site?
It's likely to be this site, as well as starting some single family home construction, which is just, immediately to the left of this plan.
Yeah.
Both of those will be happening at the same time this fall.
Okay, good. I'm all set. Thanks.
All right, is Mr. McGee with us yet?
I am here.
Very good.
Um,
The comment, sir.
Thanks. So just so you know, Rachel, if my computer bounces me again, it's the internet connection, no doubt. I'm probably going to head over to town hall. So you may have an extended run at sharing this meeting.
Okay, good to know.
But as far as this one goes, I'm good with the architecture, the elevations we received. I trust that the applicant can work with staff on the remaining elements, including the light dimming features. That's all I have. Thanks.
Right, thank you. And the chair actually has a couple of comments. And it's just an admonishment for the future. And that is I look at, for instance, the elevations that were included in the submission, and it says the view from along Downs Road. The problem is the elevations really don't show the mechanical room, which is shown on the plans. So they're not actually accurate. I'm looking at what was included in our packet. And the same way as we look at the garages, the elevations are kind of sketchy. I have no idea what the handles are for the garage doors. Presumably there are some. And I would just appreciate it is as we go forward, and we get to this stage, we're really looking at what this is going to look like as you start to build it. We're not looking at the actual building plans, but it's very helpful to have a little more accuracy in some of these designs that you're including in our packet. So again, that's going forward. If you haven't figured it out by now, I tend to check those things. I would like to see the rear of the garages. Don't see them. I'm assuming it's just a big, broad, blank wall, but sometimes it's nice to see things like that with the with whatever landscaping or foliage is going to be back there. So I am going to really start looking at things like that as it goes forward, because otherwise it's just, to me, as a teacher, I would talk to one of my students about being a little sloppy. And that's sometimes what I'm seeing here. You've got a good design, you've got a good concept. I like where the direction is going, but I would appreciate a little more care in the presentation. Now, saying that, I have a draft motion for the Tandem Court condominiums. I move to approve the project titled Tandem Court Condominiums as depicted on the plan set prepared by Goral Palmer, dated 6/29/20, with the following findings, waivers, and conditions. Findings: the applicant is proposing to construct two 4,751 square foot, 12-unit residential condominiums located on Lot 1 of the Town Center Residential Neighborhood Subdivision within the Downs. The proposal also consists of 3 parking garages and landscaping provisions. The project is located within the Crossroads Plan Development zoning district and is further identified on the Town of Scarborough tax maps as map R52 Lot 4. The planning board has reviewed the application and supporting documentation and finds that the proposed design of the subdivision adequately addresses the requirements of the subdivision ordinance, site plan review ordinance, zoning ordinance, and the standards set forth in the Town Center Residential District space and bulk standards and design and performance standards. Waivers: number 1, permit the requested parking aisle width to be 20 feet. Conditions: 1, prior to the signing and release of the final subdivision plan, the plan set shall be revised to address A, a note on the site plan indicating when the light fixtures on the site will be dimmed, as discussed with the planning board. Need new glasses. B, additional screening provisions surrounding the proposed transformer pad is discussed with the planning board. C, a plan note on the subdivision plan and the site plan referencing the recorded Town Center Residential Neighborhood Subdivision Plan. D, address the remaining review comments on the civil peer review memo by Woodward and Curran dated 7/9/20. This shall be reviewed and approved by the planning department. 2, prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall A, revise building elevations that include the proposed colors. B, building elevations of the proposed garages. C, pay the traffic impact fees. D, pay the recreation contribution fees. E, provide approval by the Portland Water District. This shall be reviewed and approved by the planning department. 3, prior to the issuance of a sign permit, the applicant shall provide a final signage plan. This shall be reviewed and approved by the planning department. 4, prior to the start of construction, a pre-construction meeting is required. The meeting shall include appropriate town staff, the developer, and their site contractor, and is to be coordinated through the planning department. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Who did I get for a second?
Good, Nick.
Okay, let's go with Roger. I saw him. There. Additional comments? All right, let's go for a vote. Rick Meinking,
Yes.
Roger Beely,
Yes.
Jennifer Ladd,
Yes.
Nick McGee,
Yes.
Rachel Hendrickson, yes. Congratulations. And we have some very nice looking condos coming. Thank you very much, folks.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And Mr. McGee, you get it.
We'll try it again. Here we go. Next item on tonight's agenda is 3 Diamond Realty LLC requests a master plan review as part of a plan development project for 25 to 29 Higas Parkway, Assessor's Map R52, lots 34A through C. Jamel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this project is located in the Higas Parkway zoning district, and as you said, located along the Higas Parkway. The applicant was actually last before you in May for the first review of the master plan, and the project was actually on the last meeting's agenda, but was tabled due to the late hour. So as a reminder, the applicant is proposing a multi-lot mixed-use development, including commercial, light industrial, and residential uses spanning 3 current properties. The applicant has included the proposed ratio of square footage of non-residential uses and residential uses for this submission. The proposed ratio does appear to meet the required 40% residential to 60% non-residential zoning standard. Given that the zoning ordinance requires residential uses to be sufficiently set back and buffered from major roadways within this district, the board should provide direction on your comfort level with this use located directly along the parkway, actually within lot 7. And staff has continued to offer comments related to the proposed access road and pedestrian amenities that are proposed to be public infrastructure in the future. Additional details are needed for the proposed multi-use paths, roadway, sidewalks, and the applicant should discuss these elements with the board and when they intend to provide the required details. At this point, I'll turn it back to you. I believe Rachel.
No, I'm still here.
Oh, sorry.
Hard to tell, I know. All right. Thanks, Jamel. I appreciate it. We have Jason. And Jason, I think you're on mute.
Oh,
There you go.
oh, sorry about that.
No problem.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you, Jamel, for that introduction. Yeah, so we from the last time we had discussed, we submitted the 60/40 calculations, and that's just a kind of a general exercise to show, as we've shown the master plan, that it kind of bears fruit. And I'm very confident that the plan you have before you is reasonably developable, and we hit those numbers. This is kind of an interesting use of the master plan application. So my client is not actually the developer for any of these projects. He's basically looking to take use of the master plan ordinance, because anything over 5 acres in the zone typically would require it anyway. So he's trying to create a more development ready project that he can use to attract a multiplicity of things that fall into the master plan. And that's why we kind of left it a little bit vague. I'm actually working on 2 or 3 concepts right now. So it's kind of important that we figure out, kind of get through this stage, because the next stage, as Jamel mentioned, is we actually have to go through subdivision to create these different size lots for these different uses. And we'd like to actually get going on that as soon as possible, but I don't think we can until we sort of get this stage over with. So when under that subdivision proposal, that's really where we get into these, what are these trail systems going to look like? It also gives us the ability to go to MDOT. This is a controlled access highway, Higas Parkway is. So MDOT has fixed these locations, but I think you guys have heard me say this 1,000 times. Probably won't hurt to hear it again. I'm a big believer that Higas Parkway needs a multi-use trail. As you know, we've done Foley's Fitness. We've looked at a number of other projects along this corridor. And we happen to be the town's engineering consultant on some of the infrastructure work that goes on. And as I'm out there, I see more people walking on Haggis Parkway. And I'm a big multi-use trail guy. I think that it's something that we would like to start that conversation with DOT and put like a 10-foot wide trail off the shoulder, like way off the shoulder, kind of like what you see in other locations. If you think Portland or other places where it's that real safe strip where you can ride your bike, walk, and be away from the traffic that Haggis Parkway generates. So that's kind of important to us and important to this project that we sort of start getting that that process going. So as far as those specific things, I think it makes a lot of sense, and to maybe, if you could almost code this project as, if you came in with a concept plan, it would be on the applicant to sort of refer back to the master plan and say, here's how it fits, because essentially you may have 10 different applicants on this master plan over the course of the next 5 to 6 years. So I think the master plan is almost like a living document, as I read it, and that you really kind of want to have the ability to kind of go back and forth and say, is this an amendment to the master plan? Does it sort of fit the nature of what was approved at this level? And I would be supportive of any kind of mechanism that sort of institutes that approach. Kind of rambling here. I don't think we have any other comments. One thing Jamel was talking about. So one of the concepts we have been looking at is, if you look up at lot 7, he was talking about a residential component. That's not the way it's shown here. Isn't the concept we have currently, but we do have someone interested in doing a smaller scale residential project right next to, I believe, the lot to the right of lot 7 was recently approved as a restaurant, sort of wine bar type of thing. I think it's a great use. I'm kind of hoping it gets open pretty soon. But we just thought that because lot 7 has limited access to Haggis Parkway, a sort of a high traffic commercial use isn't going to be a real, probably there's just not enough land there to sort of attract something like that. So we thought more of a lesser intensive use, such as a small residential project would sort of be a good fit there, especially if we had this sort of multi-use trail that kind of connected, everything on Haggis Parkway, that, eventually they could get down to the Downs entrance that's coming out. They could get to Foley's Fitness. They could get, they could just walk across the access way and get to that new restaurant. So very curious to get your thoughts on that type of development there. And I think with that, I will turn it over to the board, see if they have any questions.
Thanks, Jason. We have an opportunity for public comment this evening. If you are here in attendance and would like to speak on this issue, please use the raise my hand feature found in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. We'll call on you and just state your name. You have about 3 minutes to give us your thoughts on the project. All right, I do not see any public comment at this time, so I'll close public comment and turn it over to the board. Jennifer, you want to go first?
Sure. I don't have too many specific comments. I understand the intent of kind of teeing this up for future breakdown, I guess, through the subdivision process and development thereafter. I am curious if you've had any conversations with anyone from DOT about a multi-use trail along Haggis Parkway.
Yeah, that's a great question. Leave it to the engineer to come up with that one. So we actually, I did, and I don't want to pull in any town staff into this where they might not be comfortable, but we even offered to do some sort of study over how to implement that trail. And I know that there's some money, or there until COVID hit. So all these conversations were pre-COVID. There was some money to sort of look at, maybe through PACs, the best way to go about that, because it really is a type of thing that you have to go outside of this development and really look at all the potential uses coming in. I mean, I know you guys have 2 or 3 projects for the Downs, every agenda, and pretty soon that's going to start creeping out the Higas Parkway. And so it really needs to be, that 10,000 foot view holistic approach. To be honest with you, we'd be happy to kind of spearhead that, and the subdivision, if we get the sketch plans and the subdivision application, I think that's something that I'd have something concrete that I could go to, DOT with and say, here are the uses that are coming. Here are the uses that might be coming in behind it. Can we look at everything on this corridor and really kind of get this trail together? That's actually, that's something I'd actually enjoy trying to do, because I think it's a good thing to do for the town. So.
Sure. No, I understand that that's a big lift for a project, even at the master plan level here.
Jen, if I could just jump in on the points that Jason was making. That was something that we had talked about with our town traffic engineers starting to take a look at. As was mentioned, this was pre-COVID. There were some very preliminary discussions, probably January, February, and then things sort of fell apart.
Mm-hmm.
So it's on the radar, and probably a conversation that, as you said, I think we'd want to look at more globally than sort of project specific, and something we'd probably usher through our transportation committee and the like. But certainly, we look to see where we could find partners in that project as and if it's able to move forward down the road. So that's where it stands for the moment, anyway.
Sure. Yeah, thanks. I was just curious if it was like a no way or more discussions to be had. So it sounds like that's the latter is more the case. Appreciate development coming with any sort of forethought and or support for infrastructure like that. We're pretty lucky to have the Eastern Trail here, and yet just probably because of its history as a rail corridor, not a huge amount of development focused around that, although in some cases we do have that. So I just think it's could be a cool opportunity for both things. So that's all I have.
Thanks, Jen. If you could you just let me know if you're okay with the proposal for having lot 7 with the residential side of it, along with, clearly some buffering that we need. Are you comfortable with that proposal?
Yeah, sure. Sorry. With some buffering, yes, and I understand the space constraints there and concern for potentially not being feasible for other uses.
All right, thanks, Jen. Rachel, you want to go?
Sure. My basically only comment really did concern lot 7, and it makes me a little queasy, which is not exactly a term of art, but I would really want to make sure that there is ample buffering to have the residential have a residential facility that close to Higas Parkway, and then that close apparently, I gather, I understand all of this is conceptual, to the exit onto Higas Parkway. I will say yes, yes, we have, board has reviewed and passed the restaurant for that area, but given economic times, as we know, it may be an awfully long time before that could be built. So what would be your planning in terms of having an exit onto Higas Parkway if all of a sudden that restaurant is not in any sort of construction phase when it's time to, when somebody wants to put the apartment building there or residential area? And that's something that I think you have to consider, and it may be a little more complicated than if the restaurant is already there. Now, we do have the plans for the access from the restaurant, but you might find that residential building all of a sudden is a kind of a standalone sitting there in the middle of some deserted areas on either side, or forested areas on either side. So I'm not against it. as a residential area, but I've got concerns about what it's going to look like and how it's going to be constructed and how it's going to fit in. Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. Roger?
Sure. On that lot 7, Jason, can I assume, I understand your rationale for the residential versus the commercial. But can I assume that should somebody approach you, you folks, and they want to put a commercial property in there that doesn't appear that it would generate a significant amount of traffic that would affect that joint driveway? Is that something you would consider?
Oh, sure, Roger. Yeah, the thing is that,
In other words, you're looking at something to go there that's not going to generate a significant amount of traffic.
that's correct. Yeah, and but I will warn you that we have been approached. I've actually another client, not Mr. Higgins, who's the applicant here, has approached me with a footprint and is very much interested in doing a residential project there. That's sort of why we've kind of kept it there. And it's not a whole lot of units. I think what he's shown us is pretty tasteful. And to go back to Rachel's question, both those lots, so the former, it used to be Haggis Parkway Professional Park or something, both those lots have access to use and build that entrance in the approved location. So if this project goes before the restaurant is constructed, that's actually a benefit to the restaurant because that applicant would have to build that entrance per MDOT's requirements. So that's what would happen. Sort of first man in kind of draws the short straw. So that is one of the concepts, Roger, that we've got in our back pocket that, we'd be thrilled to be able to bring to you, in the future. But I think we need to cycle through this process first.
I think the overall site, the plans that I'm looking at right now look pretty interesting. The only thing that really troubles me to some degree, and I know we discussed this when you were before the board last, was your potential connection to the Enterprise Business Park. And if I recall, didn't you say that is something that's not likely to occur?
That doesn't sound like me. I'm an optimist.
Okay.
So by code, or not by code, but just by engineering practices, we would show a right of way all the way down there. But if you look at Enterprise Business Park, and I think you'll remember this from back when we did the master plan on that 2 or 3 years ago, the connections that were shown when Enterprise was approved don't now make a whole lot of sense from a natural resources perspective. If you remember, it had a right of way to Haggis Parkway, but it was in the middle. A right of way to this property, Linwood Higgins's property that you're looking at now. It was in the middle of a giant wetland swath. So there's a swath of uplands that road sort of follows as it goes down to Enterprise Business Park, and it would take an amendment of their subdivision plan to sort of reroute that. So right now, Enterprise Business Park has a right turn in, right turn out only entrance on the south side of Land Rover. And we all know how we feel about those entrances on Route 1. To me, it would make more sense to take that entrance out and then turn Enterprise Business Park Road, which I believe is not Technology Way, the other one, Commercial Drive, and turn it up into our development. And so that would take coordination. All of that area isn't developed yet. That's what's called phase 3 and 4 of Enterprise Business Park. And so if that got to that point, that would be a future conversation, but the logical connection would be there on our side of the property. And then it would be up to the Enterprise Business Park applicant to choose to utilize it.
Okay, is that why towards the end of that road, you have it swinging towards, let me give my directions, towards the north?
Yes,
as if it was going to swing into at some point right across Enterprise Park.
yes, yeah, that would, and that, when we come in with subdivision, I probably would do that a little bit. We're just showing that now because I actually had done a holistic plan also for David Miley for something else, and was relocating his road to combine some lots and for one potential user that I believe is no longer post COVID is no longer hot to trot to do something. So yeah, that's all. Take all that connection right now with a grain of salt. We would probably leave, to be honest with you, when we get down to that end, there's a swath of like 200 feet where we could connect in. That makes sense. So, even if we kind of left the 50-foot parallel, a 50-foot bolt, so that even if you had to make like a T intersection or something, we could connect in. We could make accommodations for that.
Sure. I think it would be terrific if somehow in the future that could connect and have this whole area have all these interconnected roads,
Well,
I think,
having just reviewed some traffic impact fees for other projects, I think it makes a whole lot of sense to avoid that Haggis Route 1 intersection. So yeah, anything we can do to move traffic, keep it off Route 1 would be great.
okay. I'm all set.
Thanks, Roger.
Thanks, Roger.
Rick Meinking.
Yeah, I'm generally comfortable, provided that there is adequate buffering and for that lot 7 to, maybe have a residential component in there. Conceptually, I think, this is an interesting layout. I'll be glad to see it come back with, some real buildings and some plans for each one of these lots that is going to be made available here. But generally speaking, I'm comfortable with moving forward on this. Thanks.
Thanks, Rick. Yeah, I think my colleagues covered the bulk of it. I think lot 7 with the residential and some significant buffering can work. And I think we also look forward to seeing the subdivision plans with more detail around the road structure and infrastructure that we'll see there. So that said, we do have a motion available. All right. I move to approve the conceptual master plan titled Haggis Parkway Master Plan proposed by 3 Diamond Realty LLC as depicted in the application materials packet prepared by Atlantic Resource Consultants dated June 29th, 2020 with the following conditions. 1, maximum allowance for residential uses within the project shall be 65,067 square feet. 2, address the remaining comments noted in the staff review memo dated 8/3/20 related to the master plan approval and as discussed with the planning board. That's the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any discussion from the board? Okay, we're gonna do a roll call vote. Rachel Hendrickson,
Yes.
Jennifer Ladd,
Yes.
Roger Beely,
Yes.
Rick Meinking,
Yes.
Rick McGee is yes. Thank you. Good luck, Jason.
Thank you. See you a little bit later.
All right, next item on tonight's agenda is Maine Realty Advisors request a site plan amendment for 40 Manson Libby Road, Assessors Map R62, Lot 22. Jamil.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this proposed project is proposed in the Industrial Zoning District located on the corner of Manson Libby Road and Washington Avenue. So the applicant has indicated that they're proposing to renovate the existing building on the property for new tenants. According to the materials, the renovations will result in 16,000 square feet of office space split between 3 tenants. The proposal also includes a full access driveway along Manson Libby Road. The staff has noted in the comments that it is unclear if the entire building will be used explicitly for professional office as defined in the zoning ordinance, or if a portion of the building could be considered a non-municipal government use. This distinction will be important for the board's review of the project, particularly in regards to off-street parking and design. The applicant should discuss the proposed uses and functionality of the site with the board this evening. As the board is aware, where a site has frontage on 2 or more streets, the site plan standards require that access on the site be provided off the street where there is lesser potential for traffic congestion and hazards to traffic and pedestrians. As previously noted, the applicant is proposing a second full access driveway along Manson-Libby Road, and staff has noted that supporting documentation will be needed with future submissions to the board. The applicant should also provide rationale in the submission for the proposed access driveway and seek input from the board in regards to their comfort with this design. Staff has also noted that the site plan standards require parking that is located between the street and the building to be screened using a variety of elements. Staff has recommended a additional row of plantings along Manson-Libby Road and Washington frontages, given the design of the proposed parking areas. And finally, staff has noted that the designer indicated the proposed flow rates from the site are at or below the existing flow rates. However, supporting stormwater calculations have not been provided at this time. It should be provided with future submissions to the board. At this point, I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Jamel. Mr. Monyak? And you're on mute if you're trying to talk to us. Paul, can you hear us?
Hello. Hello.
Hi,
Can you
yeah,
hear me?
there you are.
Okay, sorry about that. Just as it clicked over, my phone went off, and not sure what that was all about. So I can request to share my screen, I believe. All right, there we go. So let's see. Yes, so this is for the 40 Manson-Libby Road. I will just click to my previously approved plan. Basically, we're at the intersection of Manson-Libby Road and Washington Avenue. This building is an existing structure. It was built in 1988. On the location map, I have it highlighted here in yellow, just south of the Route 1 Blue Star Memorial Highway. In the zoning map, it falls under the I Industrial District, again, highlighted here in yellow. And what brings us to the planning board tonight is that we are changing the use of this building, which was previously approved for as a 16,000 square foot building. 10,000 square feet is office space, and the remainder is for personal use. As we move forward, the owner of this facility is GSA Realty. I'm sorry, not GSA, MRA Realty. And the Bureau of General Services Administration is looking to rent space within this building. So currently there's one tenant. And let me pull up that plan real quick here and show you. All right, so this is this front corner is the existing corner of the building nearest the intersection, and that's the occupied space. I'm sorry, that's upside down. You can see my little key here, basically. So we have two different or three distinct areas, I guess. One half of the building is being renovated. And then if you can see, it's just off. Let me do this as a slideshow. And maybe we'll see it on the screen a little better. Yeah, so you can see the back corner here on this little key is the other space that's being renovated. The front here in this corner, which relates to the corner closest to Manson-Libby Road, is the existing tenant that will remain unchanged. So moving forward, this is the existing site as it sits right now, the aerial photo with the parking and a loop road around the parking lot. This is it in our CAD plan view. We're removing some pavement in order to get some fencing in, as well as some additional site lighting off of this edge of the building. This is the existing site view of the building. It's basically a brick facade with windows and doors punched through that facade at various locations. This is another view from the Manson Libby Road. It pretty much is the same all the way around the building. This is going to be the proposed elevation on this side. There's a few changes to windows. This window's going away. There will be 2 windows side by side over here. And these are all basically generated based on how the interior of the space is being renovated. Similarly, on this side, we're putting in additional doors and windows. And what you see here is the brick being removed, only to be put back as we do the work behind the wall, and we are structurally changing where the shear walls are within that structure. It remains a 1-story structure. The door locations are approximately where they were before. So that brings us to our proposed site plan. Again, if you can see here, there is a gated access for a fenced off parking area that is in this corner of the site. The rest of the parking lot remains merely unchanged. We've added a number of spaces to meet the new requirement for off-street parking based on the increased office space that falls within this building. Part of that office space is in fact government office space, which isn't allowed use in this industrial zone. And the other item I will bring your attention to besides the fence is that we were proposing a second entrance here off of Manson Libby Road. The existing entrance is on the Washington Avenue side. This entrance allows for more of a convenience than anything. So we are open to discussion on that item if anyone wants to talk about that once I'm done with my presentation, but it's not required, nor is it necessary per any ordinance requirements. But again, it's a convenience factor. The other items you can see on my lot data table here is we are increasing the impervious area. If you recall, there was a grassed island here that now becomes parking. And as part of that, we are treating the water with a Filterra storm drainage unit. We do have a turning radius software that we use on this particular site. This shows a fire truck able to get back into this parking area should it need to. It shows it navigating the entire site, and it shows how it would come in and out of the new parking area. So even with the fenced in area and the additional parking, we are still able to maneuver around the entire building. Again, if we use this entrance, it would be for convenience, but we are able to make the various movements needed as proposed. The planting plan is fairly simple. The backside property line, so if this property is a triangle shape, the whole backside is wooded. There are existing trees from the elevation, if you may recall, right along here. Those are basically crab apples. We're proposing to do the same along this side. The other improvements are sewer. We have a bathroom over here, and we're going to run it out through and put a new stub over to this existing municipal connection. And again, the fencing has additional lighting for security purposes within that fenced in area. The idea is black, vinyl coated chain link fencing. There will be a cantilevered sliding gate right as you enter the site and into that parking lot. The last piece I wanted to talk about through this slideshow is the stormwater treatment. If you're unfamiliar with Filterras, it's basically a soil filter that's in a concrete box. Water is drained to it, and it is the root system and soil within that box that treats the water, and then it empties out through the bottom of that structure. We received staff comments as well as a memo from traffic as well as Woodard and Curran. I'm going to exit this for a second here. And I just want to address a few of these items. We don't have any issues with any of them. The Woodard and Curran noted that the parking area, so I should bring our attention to that real quick. Within the fenced-in area, we have one section in here that is 24-foot parking aisle. It doesn't meet the ordinance for the travel aisle, but we were trying to consolidate this parking area and getting the fence to align. That's how we proposed it. If we needed to, we certainly could push out the fence 2 feet. We do have the room to continue with circulation, but we're asking for a waiver on that particular drive aisle. If it's not granted, we certainly can make that adjustment. They also, Woodard and Curran made a comment about the stormwater, that the calculations, they would like to take a look at the calculations. So we have no issues with that. We have those produced as we generated them during the design. The comment was that the flow is not increasing even though there's increased impervious area. And I just wanted to respond that the reason for that is the time of concentration change. So all of the water is split from the back half of the building and either goes into the roadside ditch on Washington Avenue or the roadside ditch on Manson Libby Road before it crosses Washington Avenue in a existing storm culvert. So when we run part of that stormwater through the Filterra, it slows it down just enough that all the water does not meet at that pipe at the same time. Another comment was, how does the Filterra outlet? Again, this is just a soil filter in a box, and it will have a pipe from the back of the structure that will then daylight into that roadside ditch. The final comment from Woodard and Curran talks about contacting the water and sewer department, which we have sent a letter to those utilities. The idea being that we have plenty of capacity. There's no issues with the municipal connection. It's just that the increase in flow will result in additional impact fees. So, and we're certainly fine with complying with that. The traffic memo is talking about the driveway and the entrance and the ordinance requirements for that. Again, it's for merely convenience. And should the board not grant that entrance, we will remove it from our plans. And the final item was the road impact fee calculation. And basically the increase in trips will require additional road impact fee. I should point out that initially, let's see here, I was hoping I could share a different screen potentially. We were using the traffic ITE manual. And initially we were looking at the general office building, which was 1.15 trips, when in fact we are the government office building for a portion of this, which would be 1.71. And what that does is it actually increases the trips pre and post development by about 10 trips. So we'll have roughly 10 trips that will apply to that road impact fee. Again, we do not have any issues complying with that requirement. And that was it for the actual traffic memo. Other staff memo comments. We've actually prepared a, hold on, I will share that screen as well. We've actually prepared a memo in response to all of the actual comments received. And we will be submitting those with the plan changes, if impacted, to the planning board and planning staff, so that we can show that we are in compliance with all of those items. I just wanted to run down through them real quick. We have added the fire truck, and we've noted that this is non-municipal government office space, which is an approved use. So we did make that note on our plans. Again, the second entrance we feel could provide safety, as the trips could be split halfway to either road rather than all at the one entrance. But again, if the board wishes, we can remove that second entrance. We have some plantings, and we're willing to work with the planning department to add additional plantings as needed. Stormwater flow rates, we have those calculations we are ready to submit on. The offsite improvement and historic preservation, we had asked for waivers on. We do not believe there are any offsite improvements needed for this project, as is an existing development with minor revisions. And again, historically, there are no historic impacts, as the building has been in existence since 1988. We have lighting, and I actually have the photometric plan I can share as well. Again, we're only showing the lighting at the parked area, the parking area. Actually, here I'll gonna share this screen and share. All right. This comes right from our application package that we sent to you, but for lighting, we do have a photometric plan, and you can see that most of the lighting is concentrated in that parking area with 1, 2, 3 new fixtures, none of which exceed the ordinance for lighting at the property line. Let's see, the other thing I was going to note is that for that second entrance, there is no additional state permitting with Maine DEP. We don't trigger any stormwater permits. The DOT has been consulted on a new driveway entrance and feels as though it would be fine for their driveway entrance permit. The number of trips do not generate the need for a main traffic movement permit, and there are no federal permits needed as part of this project. A comment from planning staff was that the signage, if there is any signage, needs to be submitted for. The applicant is fully aware of those requirements, and right now no additional signage is being proposed other than some directional signage and identification, tenant identification signage at the doors. At the time, before the substantial completion occurs, that signage will be applied for if there's any additional signage. The lighting, there was a comment about the lighting and the actual light poles. We do have those as well in the lighting. We've included the cut sheets for the light fixtures themselves. I do have the light pole as well, which will be submitted to the planning staff. The lighting pole itself is a 20-foot pole, which is pretty standard to set those lights on. And let me see if I've got all the comments taken care of. Yeah, the parking, the internal circulation, and utilities. Oh, the one final item I wanted to point out here is that we did not identify the dumpster on our proposed plan. There is an existing dumpster, and we can then clarify that on our revised plans, but this is the approved plan from 2008. And where my cursor is, you can see the existing dumpster that still is in that location. At the time, there was a wood stockade fence proposed. We can redo that fence as it's aged a little while since for the 12 years it's been up, and make sure that it is in compliance with the ordinance. So I guess at this time, I will take comments and I will answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you. We have an opportunity tonight for public comment on this item. If you are here and would like to speak on this, we are allowing 3 minutes per comments. We ask that you please keep them to the point and appropriate for what it is we're reviewing here. With that, if you are interested in speaking, please use the raise my hand feature and I will call on you so you may speak. Okay, I do not see any public comment on this item. I'll turn it over to the board. Rachel, do you want to go first?
There we go. Yeah, sure. Well, I was confused before you started, Paul, and I was more confused afterwards because I am still trying to figure out both the layout, the changes, what the original was, what you're proposing, and where the 3 particular areas are and the function of those areas. As I looked at your proposal for the parking that included a security fence, it seemed to me as though you had both parking inside and outside, and I wasn't clear. To me, understanding the function of a building becomes very important if there are questions on the amount of parking that's needed or not needed. So as I looked at the plans for the building and the 3 different areas, as you started talking and outlining those 3 different areas, they seemed to me, from my review, to be different than what I saw on the plans, which is why I'm really confused. I appreciate your willingness to meet all of our design standards and codes. Let me ask you, hypothetically, if you only had one driveway, which one would it be?
Yeah, we would continue with the existing driveway that exists.
All right, why did you say that the other driveway was a matter of convenience? Does that have to do with building use or the population you're going to be serving there, or what? Really help me understand here, please.
Sure, absolutely. The 3 tenants are now going to be occupying this building. We are taking what was essentially 10,000 square feet of office space, and it will become 16,000 square feet of office space. That's an increase, basically 1.5, 1.6 increase in the amount of people at this building. So with 3 tenants and the additional 10 trips, which in my traffic letter, we had about 11 trips previously. We're up to 21 now. So it's double the amount of trips being generated to this actual site. So if we had 2 entrances, we could then theoretically split those back to 10 trips at each driveway entrance. And there would be essentially no change perceived. But if we needed to just use the 1 entrance, that's perfectly fine as well.
But so it's simply for ease, congestion on the road, and nothing to do with the traffic flow on the property inside.
That's right. Right now, that's essentially one way around the building is the way the traffic flow is, and it will continue to be that way. You are right. We've added some additional parking because the off-street parking requirements were increased due to the increased space being used inside the building.
Okay, so you have three buildings. Who are the three tenants?
Yes, we have here. I will share this plan because I think it shows it better. This is my layout plan that I submitted. And if you can see the dark outline here, this is the delineation of the space. So this dark line makes this tenant one tenant that accesses this door. And that will be for the Bureau of General Services. It's veterans and I believe it's mental health. The front corner here, again, the outside of the building, and then there is a dashed line separating them. They have their own dedicated entrance here. And this is for the marketing group that's currently the tenant at this building, the lone tenant at that building. And then the final dashed line here separates this side of the building. And that we'll call them tenant space 1, 6,000 square feet of office space. And they will have a main entrance here, a secondary entrance from the fenced in parking. And that is, again, the General Services Administration. That is the Bureau of ICE. And so they all have separate dedicated entrances in and out of the building for their building. There's no interconnection within the buildings. These are fire rated walls, keeping the spaces separate. And essentially they have parking. They can access parking anywhere except within the fenced in area. The fenced in area is the parking requirement that the tenant at the ICE facility has requested. So that's all they requested, even though it may not exactly conform with the space, the office space and the ordinance requirements. Overall, the site meets the requirement for parking based on the, let's see, where do I have that? Parking spaces. It's essentially whether it's general office, if it's non-municipal government office, it's all the same, which is 4 per 1,000 square feet of office. You know, we're not really going to have all of this as office. Some will be mechanical space and office storage spaces, but for the ease of this calculation, we just said it's 16,000 square feet, which is the footprint of the building, and that comes out to 64 parking spaces. And that is what we have proposed on our site here.
All right, let's go back to the Veterans Affair. So you said that's a mental health.
That's my understanding, yes.
So is that going to be seeing clients? And why would it be not a healthcare facility?
I don't really know exactly how that operates in there, but it's my understanding that these are offices for people who work in the mental health facility for Bureau of General Services. They may see clients from time to time, but I don't think in-person meetings is necessarily the biggest intent of this space.
Where would their work actually take place if they are mental health professionals?
Yeah, well, right now I think a lot of it is happening teleconferencing and Zoom conferencing.
Yeah, assuming COVID is over, are you saying that they will not be seeing any clients there, or they're working elsewhere? Are they commuting to this building from elsewhere?
That's right. Yeah, they'll be doing counseling for the vets more than a mental health sort of thing. It's more of a,
yeah, but counseling assumes a healthcare designation of some sort, and that's why I was trying to get a handle on whether clients would be coming in once COVID is over, which we hope is going to come in the next decade at least.
Yeah. So you're right. Yes, they'll be seeing. They potentially will be seeing vets in this space, but it's not for necessarily healthcare use as much as it is just the counseling of veterans. It's not like they won't be giving any medical treatment physical medical treatment. It's all mental health. So there's no need for, what you would typically think of a hospital or a convenient MD sort of emergency room type of space.
All right, well, I would like, Jay or Jamel, at some point, I would like to understand better what the parking would be for this, if it's not an office, if it's actually seeing counseling clients, if that would change the requirements.
Yeah, and I was
Actually-
just flipping through the zoning ordinance. And so I was just trying to see what that might fall under, because, for example, medical and dental offices have the same parking requirements as personal services, professional services. So I don't know that our ordinance specifically calls out the type of uses, Ms. Hendrickson, that you're talking about. And so I think where, as we've talked about before, where the table that we have in our off-street parking is limited, and it recognizes that there's sort of a suggestion that for those items that aren't clearly identified in the use, in that table of uses, then the parking is determined by the planning board. And so I guess that would be something we would need to maybe do a little more due diligence on, get some information, ask the applicant to see what they could find in the ITE manual or any other such sort of documentation, demonstrate what those general needs are.
All right, thank you, I appreciate that. Yeah, let's take a look at that. Paul, could you go back to the building design?
Yes, absolutely. This is my layout plan. Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
All right, the ICE facility.
Yes.
Is that going to be, let's see, I'm looking at the number of offices. How many offices and how many employees do you typically expect to be in there?
Let's see. I don't know if I exactly have that that answer. I could probably get that information for you. As I was basically as the site design civil engineer, I focused on mostly the exterior of the building. But I know that we actually, I'm being told right now that it's 12 employees in that facility. So again, when we do the design, we meet the ordinance, but we also discuss any needs with the potential tenants to make sure we're meeting their needs. So, but I'm being told it's 12 employees in that part of the building.
All right, so they are going to function as an office staff. Will there be additional employees coming and going? I assume they're functioning as office staff, correct?
That is office staff, yes. Mm-hmm. Yes.
No other functions?
I don't believe so. It's for that particular, the ICE facility, this is the offices that those people will report to on a daily basis. So
when you say those people, who do you mean?
The 12 employees.
So 12, all right, 12 employees, those people will report to on a daily basis and presumably spend their time in there. That's their workstation.
That's correct.
Okay, and their parking is where?
They are all held within the fenced-in area is what they had determined for their parking.
So you have 12 spaces within there? I'm having difficulty counting.
Yes, 10, 12 spaces in there. 12 spaces, 12 employees.
All right, I get 10 spaces, but
there's 5. 5 is 10, plus there are 2 here that are parallel parking on that side of the fence.
On the inside of the fence?
That's correct.
Okay. And the purpose of the fence is?
That is for, it's a secure facility, and they want to monitor who comes in and leaves that facility for security purposes.
And there's no other door exiting that facility?
No, so there is a door right here, which is the main entrance for if there were any visitors, if there were any deliveries or anything of that nature. You could come in this front door. You wouldn't have to come in through the fenced in area, but there is a direct entrance into the building from the fenced in area.
And the entrance the top door that you referenced, that's not a direct entrance?
I'm sorry, repeat that question.
You indicated the other door that led directly to the outside. You're saying that's not a direct entrance?
No, that's an entrance into this space. However, within the leased space, there is a secure side on one side, and then there's a non-secure side. And we have secure doors at the front and back of the space. So although you may be able, as let's say the UPS driver, to come into this front space, you will not be able to access the back half of this space without some sort of security key card.
But that's where the employees do their work. So you have them in a locked space?
That's right. That's right. The entire space is a secure, controlled, access controlled space.
All right. It looks to me as though the exit into the parking lot, we're really going to need some better plans. If only because my eyes are old and I need to see this better. But it looks as though that goes into the unsecure space. That door on the side.
The fence is right here.
Yep.
It wraps around and it comes in right here on this corner of the building. So this entire face of that building is within the fenced in area. And there are two doors right here. And there's a overhead door as well, all within the fenced in area. The only door that is not within the fenced in area is this one that faces Washington Avenue.
Okay, and the entrance to from the side, from the fenced area, what you call the secure area, that is, goes into the unsecured area of the building, correct? Help me out here.
No. Right here is a door. You'll be able to get into the lobby, but at that point you'll need to be buzzed in through that entrance. So that's where the security part happens, is right at the front door.
Right, I'm just a little, I'm a little confused and mystified by the security requirements. What do you, is there something you're keeping in there?
Well, yeah, there's all kinds of things that occur as part of the function of this facility. They have some temporary holding and processing that occurs. It is an ICE facility, so they will have particular people that they are moving back and forth from various locations, and so they'll have a temporary holding and processing that occurs within this building. No one is held overnight. But they are checked in and checked out, so they want to have security.
How long on average is the holding?
I don't know if I have an answer for that. I haven't actually witnessed the function of this facility myself. All I know is that I'm told that it is during the normal work hours that they plan to do any work within this building, and there's nothing that occurs overnight. So,
I mean, one of the things that we take a look at is things like sanitary facilities, and are the sanitary facilities adequate for the number of people that are in there? As you're changing this building around into a detention center or a holding center, it does create some questions. In terms of length of time that somebody's in there and the type of facility. Let me ask, okay, the security gate, is there one entrance or two entrances to the fence?
So we have, there is a single gated entrance. There's an operator There's a sliding cantilever gate, and there's key card access in and out of this gate. At the end, there is a swing gate. The purpose for that is for snow removal. The plan would be to open those gates, push the snow out, and then have those locked.
Right, when you showed the auto turn for a fire engine,
Yes.
it certainly showed enough space for the fire engine to come in. Can it turn around in there once it's inside the gate?
I don't believe we ran that. No. It would most likely either back in or back out, or pull in and back out.
Right, I would certainly need to know from the Scarborough Fire if that's going to be acceptable. If there are going to be a fair number of people in that building with limited access to the outside, fire protection becomes extremely important.
Mm-hmm. There is, you know, the access. So this is basically from this side of the fence to this this side of the fence. You're just a little over 60, 70 feet. The building is accessible on the other 3 sides of that building. So we can certainly check with the Scarborough Fire Department and see if they have any concerns with that arrangement. We most likely, they would have the ability to enter that space, you know, with either a Knox box. Sometimes we use a siren opener, but in terms of the maneuver, we can get their feedback on that.
Okay, let's talk about the buffering on the road. I'm hearing 2 different things. I'm trying to remember what you folks said in terms of the buffering you were willing to do. Are those street trees that I see, or is that just some plantings?
Those are street trees. Currently, there are trees along the Manson-Libby Road. Those are crab apples. And we would be then proposing the same thing along this stretch. If I could, I'll pull up real quick the, hold on one second. I have the, where is it? There is the street view, and I think it shows it a little better. So this is the street view. So essentially this side of the facility would have those trees. As we move around to the other side of the building, you will see that they have existing what look to be crabapple trees along that stretch before it goes down into the ditch. So we're looking to replicate that same thing on the other roadside since there are no trees in that location.
Well, the standards do call for additional plantings and good screening, especially when there is a parking lot on that area. It calls for bushes or plantings up to about preferably around 3 feet in height, I believe, as an appropriate screening. So certainly, I think at this point we need more screening.
Okay.
What might have been acceptable when the building was built in 1988, right? Things have changed. So
yeah,
you have the opportunity to soften the lines of the building, soften the parking, and soften the fencing. Now the fencing, I'm assuming you indicated that that was a chain link fence with black vinyl.
yes, that's right. Black vinyl fencing.
The length of it, 100% of it.
Yeah, oh, the entire fence will be the same material. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And the dumpster pad that you talked about, mentioned was there. I believe it was a dumpster.
Yes, that's right.
That also requires some screening.
Yes.
So I believe you said the stockade fence was in sad shape. That also offers an opportunity for plantings.
Okay.
So I'd like
Yep.
to think we should see that.
Yep.
All right,
This
Mr.
is.
Chair, I think I'm had my questions answered, although certainly for the next time, I would appreciate some clarity in the outlines of in the plans of the building. There are things layered, old parts of it layered on top of new parts of it, and it really helps me to be able to see something that's clear and to understand the function. So I'd appreciate that for next time. Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. Roger?
Okay. I think it might be helpful. I'm assuming that there's a ICE operation in the Portland area already someplace. And I'm assuming there might be a veterans facility similar to what you're proposing right here. Is that a fair assumption?
Oh, absolutely. There's many facilities all over the country, right?
No, I'm talking about right in this area though, because here's what I'm getting at. I think it would be helpful for us to, if we could get a better description based on what the existing facilities, how they're operating and what their operational processes are, to get a better understanding of, for instance, like the veterans, what does that entail? Is that sending consultants or therapists out to them to meet the veterans, or the veterans coming into this facility? And on the ICE facility too. I mean, if we had a better description of what these two components are going to be functioning as, and seeing we already have the existing facilities in the greater Portland area, to me, it should be rather easy for somebody at each of those facilities to provide us with a good description, so we have an idea of what's involved.
Yeah.
Well, looking at just, did you want to make a comment?
Well, I was going to say that, you know, we've had multiple people throughout the design process provide input and, you know, feedback on what they need to operate successfully. And that's where the design has come from. So we took this facility and we altered it as requested by the people who will be using it. So, and that feedback came from, you know, existing uses. So.
No, I understand that, and I can appreciate that, because they're obviously moving because they need some modifications, maybe as to the facility that are currently existing in, and trying to operate in. So they have a chance to make some changes to accommodate their particular needs. I'm just saying it would be helpful to us if we had a better description of what the ICE facility, what that operation would typically be like. And the same thing with the veterans. For instance, I have no problem with the other entryway, because I think it's obviously would be easier for the veterans, any veterans going into that portion of the building. I understand the security fence. I mean, I suspect almost any federal building, you know, that has anything to do with security has to have some sort of fencing. That's the world we live in today. But I just think, just to jump around for again, while you have the screen up there, can you plant trees along that side? Because that looks like a pretty deep ditch.
That is an issue that we're having, which is why we only have the street trees proposed. And those are right at the edge, but they'll be halfway on a slope. So yeah, it is a difficult site to buffer properly, probably.
Yeah. Are you planning to do anything to the exterior of the building in terms of, for instance, painting it a different color or anything like that?
Yes, we will. It will be painted all one color. And that's simply for the fact that, as I discussed earlier in my presentation, there will be new windows and doors placed on the facade due to whatever renovations are happening inside. So in order to make that all match and not have old versus new brick, the entire building will be painted.
Okay.
It's going to be painted a gray color, but yes, it will be painted.
Okay. I really don't have anything else at this point, other than I would just reiterate that I think it would be helpful to us if we had a bet. I understand the position you're in. I mean, you're asked to do a certain thing, explain this layout, but it would be helpful to, at least to me, to have a better understanding of what is going on inside there. So we can have a better determination of the traffic needs and things such as that. The tenant that's there now, what's the name of that? Is that Olympus?
That's right.
And they're just marketing people that they're going to stay there. They're a private entity.
That's right.
Okay. So they're going to continue owning the whole building?
They don't own the building. They're just a tenant who rents space within that building. So
I see. Okay. So is GSA going to, were they leasing the whole building, or are
they're leasing their 2 spaces. So
I see.
everything
Okay.
minus the Olympus. Yes. The
Okay,
owner of the
alright.
building is another, like I said, it's the MRA Realty, I believe.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It was on the application, but yeah.
Okay. At this point, I don't have any further questions. I understand the security aspects of it. I don't want to reiterate what I said already. So I think you know what I'm getting at. So.
Thanks, Roger. Jen.
Okay. Let's see. Yeah, I also was curious about whether or not this was like a relocation of current activity to this location in Scarborough that's currently happening elsewhere, or if it's a new office.
Yeah, I believe they're being relocated to this location. That's my understanding.
Okay, but it sounds like from your answers to what Roger was just asking about, that it's not necessarily like a one-to-one, like we could go and analyze the current location because it's different activity than what's being proposed here. Is that right?
I guess I just don't know enough to even answer for sure if that's the case.
I'm just curious about things like, traffic or circulation,
Yeah.
sewer, utility services, things like that.
Yeah, I think the ICE facility is the one that's located in South Portland. I don't believe the Veterans Clinic is something that's being relocated. I think that's a new service that's being proposed in this area. Again, they both fall under the General Service Administration of the government, but for all intents and purposes, in this building, they will act as separate entities. They have different chains of command, within that same general service administration.
And with no connection between those 2 spaces, correct? I don't think I saw a door linking there. Yeah,
no,
okay.
no.
I had several other questions that have pretty much already been answered. The only other thing I was curious about, there's a 2,000 gallon grease trap that's proposed, which I was just wondering if you could explain a little bit about that. Perhaps not necessarily something typically associated with office, unless there was some sort of food use or vehicle runoff or something like that. There's no internal vehicle storage here or anything like that. Is that right?
There is a Sally port. Yeah, there's currently a Sally port, and that Sally port is located on this side of the building, and it will continue to be used as a Sally port on that side. And you're right, that's a oil water separator. So grit, oil, water, grease separator. So basically the drippings that occur within the Sally port will come out. The grit falls down, the oil floats to the top, and all the other stuff is then exiting out. So.
Okay, I had a question about fire access, but I think you answered that. Information buffering, I think a lot of other good questions have already been addressed that I had. Thanks.
Nick is back.
Nick is back.
Yeah, sorry. Has everyone had a turn?
I don't believe Rick Meinking has, if I'm not mistaken.
All right, Rick Meinking.
Yeah, just a couple of things. I think given the changes in fenestrations and doorways, I think we're going to need to see an entire photometrics layout. I know you did it where you have the secure parking area, but because now you're changing doors and windows, I think we want to see a full photometrics of this site. And when you submit the cut sheets for those fixtures, can you let us know which fixture specifically you're going to install in there? And what I'm looking for is what the color renditioning is and those kind of things. So I kind of need a little more clarity on that in your next submission. And I guess the only other comment I want to make is the owner of the building aware of the federal energy management program where this building, because it is going to be leased to GSA, has to be listed as an Energy Star building? And so I'm wondering if there's things that are going to happen within this building and site, i.e. rooftop units or what have you, that are going to be affected in bringing this building into the Energy Star listing. And I think my colleagues have addressed everything else. I can go along with that other entrance if I see a photometrics that will represent that being another entryway as well.
Yeah,
So-
that was one of the comments, that should we have that as a second entrance, that we should light it appropriately, and we're more than willing to do that.
Okay, well, let's just, on your next submission, let's
Yeah.
that delineate. But the bigger question is, what will this building look like visually if it's having to, go through, 1988 was many years ago, and lots of new things have happened, and I do know that it will have to be listed as an Energy Star building because it's going to be leased by the GSA.
Okay. Yeah. I wasn't involved necessarily with some of those parts, but I do know that the owner of the building they were given an entire document for the lease itself with all the requirements that are needed to meet that, the tenant's needs. So I'm sure that type of thing would be listed in that document. So as far as lighting, there will just be probably your standard, light that goes over the door, just to light the door. There's not an intent to light any additional parts of the parking lot. It would just be those door lights. Can you clarify what you were saying? You said something about the color. You want to see the color of the light, or?
Well, we just want to have, what spectrum. Is it going to be a 3000K or 4000K
Okay.
color on the LED?
Yeah, okay.
Those kind of things, just so that we get a, what will the visual color of this lot be at night, and what are your dimming controls, and how are you going to have it scheduled as the ordinance requires?
Yes, okay. Yep, we can certainly do that.
That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Rick. I think we've covered the bulk of everything. I do have a quick question. Staff, do you feel like you have anything that the board hasn't covered that you needed clarity on?
I think I've heard a few of the members to speak on the second entrance. I just want to make sure that the applicant has enough guidance and direction from the board on that one. Thanks.
Thanks, Jamel.
Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Yes, I forgot to comment on the second entrance. In terms of expressing my opinion on that, and I believe only one entrance is needed. Certainly, if we follow our ordinance, it would be the Libby Manson Road entrance that would be used, and the other one would be closed. That's why I asked the gentleman what would be the preference if there was only one. I don't think a second one is needed. I don't think there's going to be the parking comes up to the doors. So of the three different facilities. So there's not a question for our veterans of walking any great distances. So I'd appreciate that. The other thing that Rick Meinking kind of reminded me of is we're not clear what the hours of operation are. And certainly the lighting, sometimes the lighting and security lighting is dependent upon hours of operation. And I'm not clear on what the security lighting is around the fence. So that would be something also that I would like to take a look at. Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. Yeah, I guess that's if the applicant has any information that they currently can give us on those questions that Rachel's just had, or if that's something that you're just going to provide at the next go around.
I can certainly provide that information. I'm being told that it's normal business hours for all three of the tenants. So, you know, a typical 8 to 5 time frame. Any security that occurs within the fenced in parking, the lighting would probably be on a motion sensor. Otherwise, we can have it dim at night, if not turn off completely at night. But I will get all that information for you.
Thanks. And I'll weigh in too on the drive. I know what the ordinance is, and I've been I could have been called a stickler at some points on the single versus double entrances on corner lots. I think you can narrow it down to one. Which one you keep, whether it's the existing or decide to close that up in favor of the newer entrance on the less busy road, I'm open to the applicant's thought. So hopefully that helps a little bit.
Yeah, I think,
go ahead.
Yeah, because the existing one is there, we would just stick with that one. There's no need to create additional work and cost for a second entrance just to shift it and move it. So again, it was a convenience item, and if we don't need it, or if it can't be granted, we understand the ordinance says that it's not necessarily required because we don't trip the 50 trips to this particular site, so that's fine.
All right. With that said, do you have any other questions for this board or clarity that you need on your end before you resubmit?
I guess just a quick clarification. So if we say that the building is normal business hours 8 to 5, what other information would you need in terms of how the facility is used to help make a determination? We want to make sure we get you what you need.
I think the office hour would apply mostly to the lighting. Is that correct? Is that my understanding? So I think it's the lighting photometric plan and the dimmable lights or the security features that you have around your lighting plan that would be impacted most about the office hours.
Right. I was speaking more about it was the comment about just knowing how this facility operates and looking at other examples of it, potentially in South Portland or other places, to know how this facility is going to operate so that a determination could be made. And I think whether that's for parking or for traffic, I'm not sure what we're trying to get to, but I want to make sure that I give everyone what they need. So I just was hoping for clarification on what it is that happens within this building that will help make a determination.
Yeah, I think it's both. I think it's the parking and traffic and the overall use of the building, which will determine your calculations overall and making sure that you're meeting the requirements for parking and for traffic movement.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah. Go ahead.
Jamel?
I think Jay and I both want to speak, but I'm
But
speaking.
Roger also has his hand up, so.
Okay, well, go ahead, Roger.
Well, that's one of the reasons I asked the question about the existing operations. For instance, if the veterans facility has more activity, then I would think that maybe that secondary entrance might be warranted. It would make it easier for veterans to identify where they're going instead of coming around and driving around the building. That's one of the reasons I thought it'd be helpful to know what these how these facilities are going to operate to some degree, in terms of activity, traffic, and et cetera, like that. That's it.
Okay.
Jay or Jamel?
I think, to me, Roger just provided some clarification around the point, so I guess I'd look to the applicant if he's looking for further clarification, but.
All right.
Uh,
Okay.
Yeah, I believe I'm all set.
Well, thank you very much. We look forward to seeing this again.
Okay.
The next item on tonight's agenda is Triton Corporation requests a preliminary subdivision review for 96 Gorham Road, Assessor's Map R54, Lot 11. Jamel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the applicant's proposing a 16-lot residential subdivision along Gorham Road, consisting of 14 single-family lots and 2 duplex lots. The applicant proposal also includes a sidewalk along a public street, village green and open space, a recreational trail. So the applicant has been working with staff and the town's peer reviewers since May. My screen just got messed up. Since May, they provided a pre-application package and has responded to prior rounds of comments. So just a few comments to go through. The zoning standards do require development to be clustered away from wetlands, but does allow for the board to allow for the crossing of wetlands for roads, driveways, and utilities where no practical alternative exists. So staff has noted that the proposed stormwater swale at the rear of lots 7, 8, and 9, it does appear to impact wetlands, and has suggested that the applicant consider a closed storm drain system to help reduce these impacts. The zoning standards do require sidewalks to be required along both sides of streets within a development within the VR4 zoning district. However, the board may allow alternative treatments, such as a sidewalk along one side of the street, footpaths, and trails if the board finds that this standard is not necessary due to the scale and nature of the development. So the applicant is proposing a sidewalk along one side of Holbrook Farms Way and along with a recreational trail on the other side of the road that extends behind lots 10 through 16. So the board should just provide some feedback on your comfort with proposed pedestrian design. The applicant's also proposing some village green space that appears to meet the 10% zoning requirement. And just the applicant should provide some background on these village green spaces and what they will entail. And then the applicant's also proposing or requesting several waivers. So should be sure to discuss those with the board. I'll turn it back to you.
Thanks, Jamel. And for the applicant, we have Richard or Owens?
It'll be Owens McCullough, but Rich might jump in and tag team it with me.
All right, well, welcome.
Yes, welcome. Thank you. Is my screen being shared okay with everybody? Do you see the it's just a short PowerPoint, 6 slides, just to kind of walk you through the project. So
Yes, it is.
That's up. Okay, good. Thank you. Again, my name is Owens McCullough. I'm a civil engineer with Sebago Technics here tonight on behalf of Holbrook Farms. Triton Corporation is the applicant, and Rich Wasina, who is out there in cyberspace someplace on this, is the principal of that corporation. Jamel gave a really good summary of the project. We've kind of taken our time at approaching this project. We started out by making a full submittal in and appreciated the time meeting with Jamel and Angela. And we also have been to the sanitary sewer district. In fact, we've even filed our main DEP permit applications. Just quickly, the sanitary sewer district, and I'll talk about that more, but just so the board knows, approved it, I guess it was a week ago at their board meeting, our sewer system. And we actually just got our DEP permits that came in. So we've been kind of taking it slow and easy to work through it. We've met with Jamel and Angela and staff and appreciated all the input. And so we hope that it makes for a better project in the end, and one that is a little more easy to review for you folks. So working through the project, the location is off of Gorham Road. It's a 10-acre parcel. And what's shown up on the screen is a map that shows the parcel. It's predominantly wooded. There's some prior development at the front. It was a house and probably some sort of a business back in the day. If I went back and looked at some of the old aerial photographs, and there were buildings on it. I guess there was a fire and one of the buildings burned, but that area is partially developed. That's shown on the right-hand side slide. So the subdivision itself, as was discussed, is 14 single-family lots, 2 duplex lots. This is a clustered development. It's clustered for several reasons. One, it has to be. 2, this piece of property has a pretty significant portion of wetland covering the parcel. So what we've tried to do is cluster in the upland areas of the parcel, preserving the wetlands, bringing our road up through the developable area. It comes to a hammerhead turnaround at the end. It's about 950 linear feet. The lots range in size from about 5,000 square feet up to the largest. It's about 11,000 square feet. They'll all have frontage along the roadway. We really approached this in many ways as a low impact design approach. It's kind of the way the ordinance is set up: small lots, limited infrastructure, limited lot coverage, preserving the natural features of the site, which are the more substantive wetlands, and keeping the infrastructure as minimal as possible, but yet adequate to service the lots. The roadway itself, go to the next slide here. The roadway itself, as it comes in, is going to be 22 feet in width. We are asking for a waiver from 24 feet. I guess you could go all the way down to 20, but 22 is a more comfortable design, especially for emergency vehicles that might have to get into the site. We just don't need full 24 feet of pavement width for this type of a road. So we thought it would be appropriate to seek that waiver and keep the amount of pavement down. We are proposing a 5-foot sidewalk running the entire length of the roadway. That would be on the, I guess it would be the southerly side of the property. We are not proposing one on the northerly side. And the reason for that is we saw an opportunity, and Rich Wassine has actually got back some email correspondence here just the other day from Scarborough Land Trust. This property, we have an opportunity to put a trail system in that connects over to the land trust property, and it really completes a connector back out to this subdivision and out to the Gorham Road. So we're looking to construct a 5-foot wide stone dust trail. There'll be a footbridge at one end to span a wetland that would be about 30 feet in length. And then we would connect into the land trust trail on the land trust property. And as Jamel indicated in the comments, one of them was to make sure we extend the trail up to the road. That was our intent all along, not to terminate it from the road. So we'll make sure that that would happen between, hopefully between a preliminary and final plan submittal. Our utilities will all be underground. There'll be underground power. There'll be public water, a low pressure sewer line. So some of the, I think you folks have probably ran across this before on another subdivision or two. We would put in we can't get gravity sewer, which we'd always like to do, but it's just not possible because of the topography on the site where the sewer is. But we're gonna put in E1 pumps. They're a pretty well-known pump system. And then each house would have their own E1 pump. It would pump up to a common force main, would go out to the Gorham Road, and then down to where it would connect to the public sewer at Maple Street. We're going to be doing that using directional drilling in some of the road because there's already been some road improvements on Gorham Road. Certainly don't want to tear that up again. And we had a meeting, several meetings, I guess, between the sanitary district and the town so that we could coordinate our work with the Gorham Road improvements. So we think we've picked the right alignment for it. David Hughes was great. Was helpful, and so was Jamel and Angela to work through that. We think we got a design that works. In fact, the sewer district voted to accept that as part of the project. Stormwater management on the project. So we're going to have a catch basin and pipe collection system within the roadway. We're going to use some drip edges off the buildings and a collection system on the northerly side behind it. They'll all go to a gravel wetland on the site, a constructed gravel wetland. And basically what that gravel wetland does is it provides water quality treatment and it provides stormwater detention, control for flood flow control. It meets the DEP Chapter 500 requirements for treating runoff, and our discharge is at or below pre-development rates. I think it's actually slightly lower than pre-development rates based on the hydrologic analysis for the project. And again, we had gone ahead and submitted that to the DEP thinking of the lead time to get through that process. And they were great. They actually, I guess, had some time and they got on it and have reviewed it and approved the stormwater system. Jamel mentioned about the swell that would be along lots. It would be 6, 7, 8, and 9. There's a small wetland back there. It's an interesting, if you look at some old aerial photos from like 2003 or earlier, it appears somebody dug a pretty deep swell right in that area. And it looks like they side cast that swell when they dug it, and it created an area that impounded some water when they dug it and side cast it, and that's that small wetland that we're impacting in that area. Our total wetland impact is about 7,500 square feet. It's a tier 1 permit through the DEP. We're not having any wetlands on the lots. We've designed the lots around that so that won't happen. The wetlands are associated with utilities, with stormwater infrastructure, roadway crossings. We have a little bit of technically, even though we're using a footbridge, I have to have some posts in the wetland for the footbridge. That's considered a wetland impact. So we had to permit that as part of the footbridge for the trail system. So that wetland, that small wetland behind the lots, we wanted to, so the water drains off those lots. We needed to create kind of a V channel in there to collect that water and send it to the pond. We had looked at enclosed drainage systems at one point back there, but because of the way the topography was, we couldn't be certain that we would capture the stormwater the way we should capture it to get it to the pond. So we decided that it made more sense to put an small open swell. And again, we think that wetland probably was a function of this deep ditch. I think it was probably agricultural field years and years ago, but somebody dug a really deep ditch out through there. We even had the DEP out to look at it to make sure it wasn't a stream, and they did determine it wasn't a stream. So we've tried to take our time and kind of follow all the steps to get to this point with the project. Again, this is just a quick picture of the road plan and the road plan view. 950 feet of road, a hammerhead turnaround at the end, large enough for fire emergency vehicles to turn around. Each of the lots will be stubbed with water and sewer. We have filed our plans with the Portland Water District. They've provided us back a few comments, which we're now responding to, and we should get that sign off here very shortly on it. And again, the sewer is a low pressure sewer going out into the Gorham Road and then down to the connection to the gravity system. We are required in this zone to provide village green space, which we are proposing on the project. There's a tract of land to the right as you come in. We are going to plant some buffering to the butters in there, but that will be open green space. We'll have the trail connection that comes around over connecting to the Scarborough trail system. We're actually in an upland area proposing a small area where people could hopefully, when COVID is over, have a place to sit and go for a walk on these trails. And then on the other side, this gravel wetland will actually have some amenities around that area there. And then the rest will be preserved as open space as part of the, for perpetuity as part of the project. And again, we're about 62% of the parcel will be open space. We will also be planting street trees along the road, the full length of the road. Those are right now planned to be 2.5-inch caliper red maples, I believe. And the last plan I have is, this is the sewer plan, the offsite sewer plan. And basically the red line you see is our low pressure sewer. And what will happen is we'll directional drill in a portion of Gorham Road where surface pavement has already been installed so that we don't have to actually cut the pavement. The directional drilling's a pretty good technology that is used more and more frequently and avoids open pavement cuts. So that will go down Gorham Road, tie into the gravity sewer at Maple Avenue. And then that would be done fairly early on. We want to get ahead of any final surface paving on the roadway. And I'm going to go back to this sketch. So what we're here for tonight is to have a conversation around hopefully a preliminary plan review. Jamel provided the staff write-up, and I tried to interweave some of the items for discussion with the board in my presentation, which included the drainage behind the lots 6 through 9, a conversation about the trail connection so that it terminates at Holbrook Farm Way, not before it. We agree with that. It should go to the road. So definitely we'll be taking care of that. We have included some landscaping and buffering along the entrance road and those properties coming up through there. And we do have a couple of waivers we need to ask the board for. I mentioned one of them already, which is the street width. We were asking to go down to a 22-foot width. We could go all the way down to 20, but we think that the 22 feet, and I think Jamel can speak to this, I think staff generally agrees, the 22 feet makes sense on the project. There's a requirement about a grid layout, which I think is more for projects that would be maybe dozens of lots where you have separate roads and you create kind of a gridded road layout. This is all the development that would happen on this property, and we tried to fit fit the development within the developable area, preserving the natural resources of the site. There's really only one layout that works on this site. We did show right away to the back property, should that ever become developed at some point, but there is a potential right of way connector in the back of the property. And then the sidewalk was the other waiver, and we had explained that our objective in that was to have one paved sidewalk along one side and have an alternative approach to include a trail connection through the site behind lots 10 through 16 that would connect to the Scarborough Land Trust. And I think that gets me to the end of my presentation. We're here to listen, have a conversation, and hopefully move forward towards a final plan approval at some point. So thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. I just want to note for the board members and those at home and watching, we do have a 10 o'clock stop time for new business. So like to try to, if we can, try to be concise with our comments and stick to the review aspects that staff has pointed out, especially on the main elements and on the waivers. That way we could try to get a few more in this evening. That said, I like, Roger, why don't you go ahead and weigh in on waiver requests and your feelings towards the wetland impacts and then the sidewalks, of course.
Regarding the 3 waivers, I have no problems with those at all. They seem fine to me. I think he did a good job explaining everything in his presentation. The only thing he didn't touch upon, which staff talked about, was the lot 16 and the abutting property, Mr. Hubbard. I guess that's going to be something that's going to be clarified before you come before us the next time.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And yes, lot 16 is the issue. That's commented here a couple of times. But I have nothing else really. I'll let other board members, make comments if they have anything else.
Thanks, Roger. Chair jumped the gun a little bit. I forgot to include those in attendance for public comment this evening. So if you are here and you did want to speak on this issue, please use the raise my hand feature in the bottom right-hand corner. And after you're done speaking, we'll turn it back to the board. All right, seeing none, I'm going to close public comment. Thanks, Roger, for that. Rachel?
I have no problem with the waivers. I know that those of you think I like sidewalks on both sides. Sometimes it's not necessary. I do have just a couple of questions for clarity, and that is you've got open space listed in back of lots 1, 2, and 3, and is there any access other than from lots 1, 2, or 3? Is there any way that the rest of the folks can get to it? So that's one question. The trail that you've got with the open space area and the picnic benches, that's a really good idea. I like that. It gives some people both an opportunity for some exercise and a place to sit and reflect. But I do have a suggestion that I don't know if it's possible, but that the trail at least temporarily connect to the hammerhead, because it may be a while before there's trails through the Scarborough Land Trust area. And as it is right now, it just kind of ends. So somebody starting down and building 1 and taking the trail, the only way to get back have to go all the way back down the trail instead of moving over to the hammerhead area and down the road. So I would suggest that that's something just that you take a look at. I don't know if it's possible, but at least on a temporary basis to provide that, make that a little bit more of a loop. I like the open space you have. I I have some questions about the buffering and whether you're going to do anything with that open space near Gorham Road other than just make it into a lawn. Is it going to be flat enough, let's say, for kids to play catch-on or frisbee or something like that? So a little more information about that would be helpful. Other than that, that's all I got. Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. Jen.
Okay. Can you just clarify where each end of the proposed trail is going to be? It sounds like, I thought I heard at one point that you were going to be connecting all the way down to Gorham Road. Is that right? With the trail?
Oops, I had to unmute. Sorry, Jen. We're actually connecting to Holbrook Farms Road. So my cursor show up on your screen. It's about right here is where we would connect to the road at. And then the other end is back over here.
Okay, and are there, and so great, you've been coordinating with Scarborough Land Trust. I think that's terrific. Are there existing trails that this is connecting to, or is that a future connection? Or do you know?
I know that Rich, I personally didn't coordinate directly with Scarborough Land Trust. Rich Wasina, the applicant, did. I think they are looking to develop trails, and the location coincides with where they would develop trails. And I think Rachel said it well. If we could, until all of that happens, if we could somehow connect to the end of the hammerhead, maybe that would provide a sort of a looped trail, at least temporarily, until they develop their trail network. And if Rich can speak, it would be great if he chimed in, because he had the conversation directly with Scarborough Land Trust.
Yes, Owens. I did have a discussion with them, and they're interested in connecting the trails, but it sounds like they've got a couple of other developments that they're all trying to plan at the same time. And I think there is a trail network there now. There isn't one that comes right exactly to that location. So there is just a few logistics that they have to work through to make that connection, but they seem very encouraged to make the connection, fairly soon. Again, I think the big thing is, timing. They're a little busy right now, but they also have a couple of developments to plan at the same time. And I think they wanted to plan them all at once, so.
Sure. Okay, yeah, I think Rachel's comment is a good one, just to make sure that we're not having a trail to nowhere. So a temporary connection to that hammerhead makes some sense until that can be finalized at that end. On the other end, I think it would be great if that went all the way down to Gorham Road. I know that, thank you for the clarification that that's not what you're proposing, but I kind of wish you were, and I feel like that would help me be more in favor of this trail in lieu of a sidewalk on both sides of the street if we kept that connection, because otherwise the trail is just kind of stopping at the edge of the road. It just feels like it would be more complete if it were to kind of come out onto the to Gorham Road. And I know that the town has some plans longer term to extend other pedestrian facilities along this area. So that's my thoughts on that. I don't have an issue with either of the other two waivers. And I think the only other thing I wanted to clarify was, let me see if I can pull up this. It looked to me, just more out of curiosity, are you proposing to pick up other properties along Gorham Road with your, well, hold on, let me find the plan. First of all, there's two red lines shown on your sewer plan. Is one of them an existing force main? And so you're showing a proposed force main in addition to that to get down to Maple Ave?
Yeah, you're correct, Jen. What we're going to do is run stubs out to those property lines along the way.
Okay.
And, you know, those folks would then have the option to tie into the sewer. I don't think they're mandated to, but the option would be provided to them.
Cool, great. I know that's been an issue with some properties along that stretch, not having access to their sewer system. So I thought that's what I was seeing, but I just wanted to double
You are
check.
correct.
And thank you for the directional drilling and not digging up the road again. And other than that, I think I'm all set.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jen. Rick Meinking.
Yeah, on the waivers, I can go along with the street width of 22 and the grid layout. And I'm all right with the sidewalk on one side, given the amount of trail that you're putting in on the other side. That's awesome for the residents that are going to be living there. You mentioned that the utilities were in the ground. Are you intending on having pole-mounted transformers, or will there be pad transformer or transformers on this on the ground? And if so, would you be able to provide locations of those?
It will be underground electric, so there will be a traditional ground-mounted green transformer pad with the cable pedestal next to it. Hopefully between a preliminary and final, we can coordinate with CMP and get a layout figured out for where they would want those transformer pads. I think they typically will service 4 lots as long as they're not more than a couple hundred feet. So
right.
I think they'll try to minimize as best they can.
Yeah, and then you'll take that and do whatever appropriate screening is so that they don't become just big boxes on the land, correct? And then my final, is there any signage on the Gorham Road to indicate a name of this development or anything, or just no sign at all?
I'll leave that up to Rich. Right now there would be a street sign, but I don't know if Rich had proposed any sort of monument sign. So Rich, are you on?
I'm here. You know, we're not proposing anything. I mean, but we're not necessarily opposed to it. You know, I'm not into anything, you know, super gaudy. I mean, I think it's gonna, you know, I think the entrance is gonna look really nice with that grassed area and the tree buffers, and then the street trees. You're gonna have some open area before you even get into the development. I think that in itself is just gonna look nice and enhance everything. But I'm not opposed to a sign. But
no,
honestly,
I'm not suggesting you have to have one. But I just wondered if that was part of the thought, and if so, you might want to have that included in your next go around here.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Other than that, that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Rick. And then as far as for my 2 cents, I'm good with the waivers. I think you have some really good suggestions. So, you know, I know you're seeking, you know, a preliminary subdivision approval this evening. I'm comfortable making that motion as long as the applicant is willing to kind of acknowledge they will incorporate some of the board comments here this evening, including the items on the walking trails and things like that. Not to get into too specific of the details, but I think you've kind of got the idea of where we'd like to see this go. I think you're pretty much there. It's a well done proposal, and you clearly did spend some time thinking it through. So
Thank you. I don't see, I think the comments the board had are certainly something we can incorporate between now and final. And Rich, you're the applicant, so I think he's on board with that. So
yeah, no, I appreciate the comments, and we're definitely on board with that. The only clarification, I mean, we're all set with 6, 7, and 8 as it's shown, right?
I think there's some concern about the wetland impacts. I don't know if that, you know, requires maybe just touching back base with staff, or if I don't know if the board is comfortable with what they see currently. It's a good question.
I mean, I think the impacts are allowed in the ordinance for things associated with roads and stormwater. And I think that little bit of grading is kind of essential to the functioning stormwater. So I was just hoping that we might get I mean, we can certainly work with staff, but I was just curious if you had any insight.
I think I can jump in too, because I got to speak with Angela about this, and Jay, chime in if you feel like you need to, but I know that there was some inconsistency between some of the plan sheets. So if the board's comfortable with the swale as proposed, just, I think we should make sure that all the plan sheets show the same proposal in terms of wetland impacts and grading.
And I guess the other thing I think, I remember Angela reflecting on is that potentially by going with a closed storm drain, potentially that could mitigate some of the impacts. I think it was, I don't think it was all of it, if I remember correctly, but it was really looking at how much could be reduced. But then recognizing that is introducing a pipe that needs to be dealt with. So sort of the balance and looking for the board to look at the scale.
For what it's worth, I guess I would say I'm comfortable with the approach being presented. Anyone else want to weigh in on that? It's hard. I don't know if anyone's nodding. I have to scroll through a tile.
Is this in an impacted watershed?
No. It's not urban impaired.
It may be threatened.
It'd be threatened, yeah.
Yes, but it wasn't considered urban impaired. And we did go through the DEP process for the stormwater permit. They looked at all of that. But we are capturing and treating it through a gravel wetland, everything. So.
Yes, this is Rachel, I'm comfortable with it.
Yep, I was going to say the same thing. As proposed, assuming plans are consistent, like Jamel was mentioning, and was captured in the staff memo as well.
Roger or Rachel, can you weigh in?
I'm basically, I would reiterate what Jennifer just said.
Yeah, I'm with Jen.
All right. Rick?
I'm in concurrence.
Okay. So applicant has their, and staff have their clarity on that item. So all things incorporated, are we feeling pretty good about at least a preliminary, knowing it's coming back with some touch-ups here? Yeah. All right. So I will move to grant Triton Corporation preliminary subdivision approval for 96 Bourne Road, Assessor's Map R54, Lot 11.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right. Rachel Hendrickson.
Yes.
Rick Meinking.
Yes.
Jennifer Ladd.
Yes.
Roger Beely.
Yes.
Nick McGee, yes. Thank you. All right. Thank you. We'll look forward to seeing the next iteration of this.
Great. Thank you for your time. Have a good evening.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Thank you as well. Good evening.
All right. Our next item tonight is Devin Frederick, DBA Frederick Brothers, requests a sketch plan review for 19 Rigby Road, Assessor's Map R78, Lot 11. And just a reminder, this is just a sketch plan, so we're going to keep this pretty high level this evening. Jamel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks for reminding us of the sketch plan. It's been a little while, so be quick. The applicant's proposing to reconfigure the existing parking layout on the site, including the addition of a new full access driveway along Commercial Road and two 30-gallon above ground fuel tanks. So again, sketch plans, the opportunity for a high level of discussion to provide the applicant guidance as they prepare for a formal site plan submission. And just two issues to touch on real quick. The board is, or the applicant is proposing two full access driveways. And there's, the site plan ordinance, requires one full access driveway when a site has frontage or two or more streets. So should provide the applicant some direction on that as they prepare their formal submission. And then staff also noted that the proposed tanks will require some additional permitting through our codes department. So the applicant should start to coordinate with our town's code officers on that element as you prepare for your formal submission. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Jamel. Jason?
Hello, everybody. Nice seeing you again. Yeah, so I'm here representing Frederick Brothers Oil. They are an existing business in Scarborough. If you might all be familiar with it, they're kind of located currently across from Maple Street or Maple Ave on US Route 1. They're in between Sherwin-Williams and I think the camera store there, Focused on You. So pretty high view. The site just doesn't work for them anymore. It's too small, and you'll see their trucks kind of crowded in there all the time. So this new site is located on Rigby Road, 19 Rigby Road. Much better use, similar use as everything else down there in the industrial zone. Bigger site, just going to work a lot better for the applicant. And Jamel is correct. What's driving this relocation is we see that the tank locations there to the sort of the right there as you come in that new proposed entrance. They'd like to store that right now they have to truck to pick up propane and then make their deliveries. And they'd like to have on-site storage with the two 30,000-gallon tanks. And sort of the necessity of that second entrance is really kind of driven by that. So the vehicles that deliver the propane to the storage tanks they're semis. I think they're 49-foot wheelbase trailer. And so in order to get a truck like that in and out of a site, even this bigger site, it really kind of needs to have a second entrance, so they can drive in back into the tank location and then pull out. It's just kind of too tight of a turn to make as it's consistent. I believe Commercial Drive is a private road. Jay and Jamel, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think the town maintains that. It's just a driveway. So I don't know how that relates to the ordinance if it's one's a private road, and I believe Rigby Road is a town road. So those are really the two major components, although I will note the existing building that's there, they're gonna use as is. The building as it is now, it has some office space and it has some storage space. It's currently being used for like fabrication, industrial use with some warehousing. That works for them as well. So they don't even plan on, maybe giving it I don't even think they're going to give it a paint job. So just going to kind of move in there and start operating. So we have shown when we make our official site plan submittal, you'll see that we kind of show some extra parking because they have a lot of large delivery vehicles. And how this works is, they may double load them or stack them like they do now. Just kind of get them out of the way, the ones that aren't in use. As you can imagine, this business is quite seasonal. So in the middle of winter, they're typically running more trips than they would be, say right about now. So they do kind of need to plan for that, sort of using a lot of trucks, not using as many trucks, that sort of thing. They really like this site. It's going to work really well for them, and we're excited to help them out. And if there's any questions or anything, I'd love to get your thoughts.
Thanks, Jason. We have opportunity for public comment this evening on this item. If you were here and wanted to speak on this item, please use the raise my hand feature in the bottom right hand corner of the Zoom. Seeing no public comment on that, I'm going to close public comment and go to the board. Roger, you want to start off?
Sure. This is really an out of the way site, so I have no problem with the secondary entrance. I think Jason makes the case for why it's needed. I'm pretty satisfied with what we're seeing so far. I mean, this, like I said, it's a pretty out of the way site, so there's not much down there. So I'm all set.
Thanks, Roger. Jennifer.
All right. I also can picture that these two entrances would be needed in order to fill those tanks, but wonder if it's possible in future submissions to just have an auto turn graphic included to show us how that type of circulation would work with two entrances and or maybe one, but I just think it would be helpful to understand that a little bit better. And not just for the fuel deliveries, but also for fire circulation as well. And then I'm also curious, and this is more from personal driving. On Pleasant Hill Road, I know there's a number of similar facilities like this that enter and exit off of that road. And so I would just be curious about the trip generation for this site and what impact that might have to left turns off of Pleasant Hill Road at Rigby Road, I guess is where that comes out. And the reason that I ask about that in particular is because I know that's on the downhill side of the overpass over the train tracks, and it can be challenging with the sight lines and everything if you've got somebody queued there waiting to take a left turn. But all things that you'll probably flesh out in future submissions. Just curious about how that will play out in addition to some of the operations activity that you talked about in the winter, where they may be making more trips than perhaps in the summertime.
Thanks, Jennifer. Rachel?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with the two entrances because I can understand the necessity. But what would be helpful for me in the next submission is really seeing where those tanks are going to be, so that I can get a sense of how the trucks are going to drive up and fill them. Is they're going to need to back up, or when they drive in, the tank's right there. Just some sort of auto turn that would be very helpful just to understand the traffic patterns. But other than that, I'm good. Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. Rick?
Yeah, I don't have anything. I think the staff comments kind of lead the applicant in the right direction for their next submission. I don't really have anything to add that would need further clarification. I'm okay with that second entryway, given the explanation from the applicant. So at this point, I'm all set.
Okay. And I'll echo the board comments. I think you've kind of demonstrated a necessity for it. So don't want to belabor the point. Looks like unless you have any questions for us, the board, or staff that need clarification before your next submission, or if staff has anything the board needs to clarify, just let me know.
Nick?
Yes, Roger.
Actually, yeah, Roger.
Just for the sake of the applicant, regarding landscape plans. My impression is they're not basically doing anything to this site other than just creating a second entrance to accommodate these tanks. So I think it's important for them to have an understanding what we're expecting them to do regarding landscaping, because I've been down on that site. There's not a lot of landscaping down there other than just natural stuff. So I don't know how staff feels about that.
I guess it's hard to tell when we don't know. Typically, a landscaping plan is part of a formal submission, so we'll look for that when that is submitted.
Okay.
So just so you know, we actually submitted for site plan today. So there is a landscaping plan in there. The tanks are shown. The only thing we don't have in there is the turning template, and I'll just do one up and we'll send it over to Jamel. so we can have staff review it. We'll send it to Jim Butler as well. And then the other thing is, I noted in Jamel's comments, they were looking for architecturals. Is the board okay with us not, because we're not touching the building. So is that still going to be a requirement? Do I need to just draft up what's there, or you know, I can take pictures of all facades of the building and submit them to you. But I mean, it's your standard, you know, brown industrial building. So.
Okay. You know, you're not touching the building. Why are we rehashing the architecture of a building would be my question.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you, but I just want to make sure you're not expecting it. So.
Okay. Anyone else have strong feelings on that? No? Okay. All right, Jason. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good luck. Our next item tonight is Oak Hill Senior Housing LP requests a final subdivision and site plan review as part of a planned development project for 41 Little Dolphin Drive, Assessors Map U45, Lot 4A. Jamel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as you may recall, this is located in the TBC zoning district at the intersection of Access Road and Little Dolphin Drive. The applicant's proposing a nearly 50,000 square foot 3-story building that will consist of 60 affordable 1-bedroom senior housing units. As previously discussed, the board will need to find that the proposed development can function as a standalone site and meet all the applicable land use standards. It remains unclear why the applicant is proposing to stabilize the vacant property with gravel instead of its current state of loam and seed. The staff has also recommended that the applicant, the materials demonstrate how the project's grading will tie into the vacant abutting property. The applicant's also proposing a condition of approval requiring that they be responsible for an interim condition plan in coordination with staff. Sorry. If a site plan application for the office building on the vacant lot is not submitted by September 2022. This plan would include details associated with long-term maintenance and treatment of stabilizing the property. And staff recommends that the applicant really go through this proposed condition with the board in some more detail. As also previously discussed, the Hannaford Shopping Plaza is a likely destination for the project's residents. Instead of a direct connection to the plaza from Foley Farm Road, as previously suggested, the applicant's proposing to upgrade the pedestrian infrastructure at the Foley Farm and Hannaford Drive intersection to improve the existing connection. So the applicant should discuss this proposal with the board. And the applicant's also requesting that the board approve growth permits from the reserve pool, given the project's eligibility as affordable housing. So the board should be sure to determine that the project can utilize these requested growth permits. And staff has provided the board with the draft motion this evening with conditions that was provided before the meeting for your consideration. And I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Thank you, Jamel. Evan, are you presenting this evening?
No, it's going to be Sam.
Hey, Sam, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair and Jamel. Good evening. My name is Sam Wabell with Acorn Engineering. Here on behalf of the project team, we're pleased to be back in front of you tonight, seeking final approval for 60 units of affordable senior housing. Really appreciate everyone hanging on into the late hour. So since this project was approved at the last meeting for preliminary subdivision, we have responded to staff comments as well as what we received for feedback from the board. Overall, the plans have not seen any significant changes, but I'm happy to go over some of the additional studies and main talking points that Jamel touched on. So jumping in, as requested in the traffic peer review, our team did conduct a sidewalk analysis in the project vicinity. In general, the sidewalks are in excellent shape physically along the 3 side roads here, Little Dolphin Drive, Access Road, and Foley Farm. However, we did find that across several of the private driveways on Foley Farm Road, there were missing crosswalks as well as detection panels. So as part of this project, we are proposing to provide these offsite improvements, which includes correcting all the missing crosswalks and panels on Foley Farm Road, as well as the Little Dolphin and Route 1 intersection. while many of these gaps would usually be left to the private landowner to improve, given Hannaford will certainly be a destination for residents of Jocelyn Place, we are willing to improve these to provide this pedestrian connectivity. We also feel this is a nice compromise since we discussed the idea of the cross-country connection to Hannaford. It proved to be an infeasible measure, so we find this strikes a nice balance between upgrading the sidewalk network to the latest standards in those noted locations. Back to the rendering, you can see within the site itself, we've taken the site design another step further and improved the pedestrian experience by providing greater material changes in the main plaza, as well as some additional placemaking efforts such as these benches and seat walls. So with these two improvements in place, the proposed project certainly provides connectivity between the building and off-site destinations such as Hannaford and the rest of the Route 1 corridor. Regarding the proposed condition of approval for the interim condition plan, this has been a main discussion point with staff, and it's important to understand that the Housing Authority has a very lengthy process after planning board approval, specifically with regards to funding. So because of this, we don't expect to be going to construction on this project until approximately fall of 2021. So as such, we have actually requested an extension of the site plan approval for 2 years, knowing upfront that we'll need it. So because this project will take a while, it gives the abutting office site an opportunity to continue marketing to potential end users. And if a user does come online, we would apply for a site plan application. And because it's a private project, the office site could conceivably go to construction prior to or at the same time as the senior housing. So with that, we are requesting a condition of approval that if the adjacent office lot has not applied for a site plan application prior to September of 2022, which is when we anticipate the senior housing site would be in full-fledged construction, then we will be responsible for submitting what we're calling the interim condition plan. And this would show how the office lot will need to be left with respect to grading, landscaping, and final ground cover. We do anticipate some level of disturbance as we construct the stormwater systems and infrastructure and bring in a certain level of gravel to the site to do so. This interim condition plan would only be necessary should the office lot fail to submit a site plan application in the next 2 years. It would also be subject to approval by planning staff. So we request this condition to avoid unnecessary efforts as well as to provide for flexibility so that we, in collaboration with staff, can determine what the best treatments will be for this adjacent site should development not be proposed within the next 2 years. Ultimately, we feel the interim measures would most appropriately be determined in the future if and when it becomes necessary. So lastly, following up on the stormwater component of the project, last meeting, there was a discussion about providing another level of analysis, specifically how this project's runoff would affect the downhill neighbor. So after the planning board meeting, we touched base with Angela to walk through the project and to make sure we understood what was being requested. And typically we would have liked to have squared this away, at a pre-application meeting, but given the stormwater was really designed in March in order to get through the DEP process, we weren't able to schedule a pre-application meeting with the town or the DEP due to COVID and everyone kind of adapting to the situation on a whim. So I think this is why you're seeing this coordination piece with staff come a little later than it otherwise would have under normal circumstances. In any case, for this last submission, we did provide the additional analysis as requested. The stormwater system design remained exactly the same. However, the additional analysis shows a significant reduction in flow to the downhill single-family property occupied by the Foleys. This is achieved by redirecting as much stormwater as possible to the right side of the site. So even though the stormwater filters shown at the top left are the closest point to the neighbor, we'll actually be piping the outlet towards this rain garden into an oversized level up spreader. So really trying to push the stormwater outlet as far away from the downhill neighbor as possible, so that the majority of the runoff can spread out into the woods and actually bypass the Foley's built land, as well as the pond behind their house. So with this proposed development, we have the opportunity to intercept, detain, treat, and then slowly release this water from a more favorable location. So not only is there a significant reduction in the runoff rate directly associated with the single family, but looking at the net discharge from the site, we are showing a reduction in the 2, 10, and 25-year storms for the overall site discharge as well. I would also note that in the hydrological model itself, we took a conservative approach by modeling the pre-development conditions as woods compared to today's actual condition, which is grass. As a result, this held us as designers to a higher standard, meaning we had to make sure our post-development flow rates were even lower. If we had modeled the existing site as grass, it would have provided for greater leeway. But since wooded areas kind of act as a natural sponge, it made our jobs that much harder in designing the stormwater system with the goal that the developed project would mimic a fully wooded site. That said, we really felt this was the right thing to do. So we decided to look at the site as it existed 5 years ago in its most natural state. And despite this conservative approach, we have still demonstrated a net reduction in discharge, particularly with respect to the neighbor. And as such, we received our DEP permit for stormwater management law in well under the typical 90-day review window. So overall, we really pulled out all of the tools on this one to provide a comprehensive stormwater design. And as a result, we see this project providing a benefit to the neighbors as well as the overall Millbrook watershed. With that, I think that covers the main discussion items we had on the applicant side. Happy to answer any questions from the board or public.
Thanks, Sam. We appreciate it. Do have an opportunity for public comment on this item. So if you're here tonight to speak on this, please use the raise my hand feature on the Zoom. Give you a chance to talk. All right, seeing none, I'm going to close public discussion. I am going to make an administrative note here that we're at 10 o'clock. And for those that are hanging around waiting for their item to be taken up, you know, we apologize. We do our best to try to get these through these agendas. Just doesn't always work out that way. So we appreciate you sticking with us through it. And if you did have a project on here that we're not going to be hearing tonight, hopefully you learned a little bit from watching this and seeing how the process goes if you're new to it. And maybe we'll become more efficient as we go for the next round. All right, with that said, I'll just kick off a couple of quick comments. One, I want to say thank you to the applicant for reaching out to the abutter and really taking those extra steps. I think that shows great initiative. You know, just being considerate, being helpful, being, you know, careful with what's going on out on that property. I think that was a great decision, and we appreciate the extra efforts that you made there. As far as you do have a waiver request, I'm okay with your waiver request for the drive aisles. I am also supportive of the extended amount of time you're asking for here, fully understanding that there's quite a few hoops that you have to go through on the backside of this. So I'm okay with the proposed conditions and granting some additional time from our standard 1 year mark. Also say that I appreciate the fact that you were creative. We all know that people there are going to want to go to Hannaford. You know, the straight line wasn't quite available or feasible, and that's unfortunate. But you, again, did something extra that we don't typically see, which is you kind of went above and beyond and said, hey, what we can do is these other things. And I think that, of course, I think we should be thankful for your willingness to do a little bit more than what's necessarily required. So With those items out of the way on my end, I'll open it up to board, the rest of the board, for anyone else that wants to comment on this. Rachel, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm okay with the waivers that have been requested. I think I appreciate you being very realistic about the amount of time that it might take to start. And while it would have been wonderful to have a shortcut to Hannaford's, your alternative offer to provide assistance and upgrades in a sense to the crossings, I think is very community minded and appreciate that very much. I do have one last little thing here. Of course, you indicated that you didn't want to put benches down along the side of the building as part of a placemaking towards the back entrance, because people wouldn't be really going or using that entrance. And then you put in a wonderful community garden, which people are going to be wanting to go to. So I would suggest that for the community garden, you provide some sort of a bench or a tool rack. People that are there are going to be bringing their gloves and their trowels and a few other things in a basket and using those gardens. So it would be nice if you just added a couple of features to those gardens, preferably a bench if you can do that. And that would just be the icing on the cake for your placemaking. The plaza in front is very welcoming. I think I like the way you've got the benches arranged and the seat walls, and I am really looking forward to seeing this whole project come to fruition. I think it's going to add a great deal for the senior citizens here in Scarborough, and appreciate the effort you put into this. Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. Roger, Jenna, Rick?
Yeah, I would echo what you, Nick, and Rachel both said. I just wanted to ask another question about Hannaford. I'm not giving up yet on that. I'm kind of curious. I know when you go out Access Road and you head down towards what's the Hannaford Drive, there is a dramatic drop right down there to the plaza where Hannaford is located. But I'm just kind of curious, if you go out Access Road and head and take a right towards the Foley Farm house, I know Foley Farm, that's a private road right there, but is that terrain, is that more level right there? Or is there still quite a decline going down to the Hannaford? Did you guys look into that at all?
Yeah, it is still quite built up there. And unfortunately, the way Hannaford's situated is it's right at the loading docks for their deliveries. So, kind of for those two reasons, unfortunately, it doesn't work in this scenario.
Okay, all right. Thought I'd just ask. I'm fine with with the waiver request and the and I think it's going to be a great addition to the town, and I hope it all goes well for you. I'm all set.
Thanks, Roger. Jen?
I also appreciate the second look at sort of an alternate, less direct, but being committed to that, the alternate route for people from this project to get to Hannaford. And so I have a couple of other questions, but I don't want them to be interpreted as not being appreciative of those efforts. I would just ask that there's a couple of things I noticed. One, I didn't hear mention of it, but in Google Street View, and actually I will include the caveat that maybe this has already been done. But if it hasn't, don't forget the corner of Hannaford. There's a ramp at the corner of Hannaford Drive and Route 1 that, at least in Street View, doesn't appear to have a panel either. It's a pretty tight corner there, given some of the signal equipment. And I suspect that the curb radius there is probably warranted. But anyway, you definitely have made an effort to look at securing a proper and ADA compliant pedestrian route from this project to Hannaford, specifically mentioning the crossing of a couple of private drives, but I just wanted to flag that one very public corner as well. And then I also had a question, because I know, and this is kind of it's a bummer to me personally, that the Hannaford site itself is not more pedestrian friendly. There's no sidewalk that enters into that site connecting actually to the grocery store. And that is squarely outside of your project purview, in my opinion. But I'm just curious if you happen to have had any conversations with them to that end. And if not, are you looking at any other walkable routes into that site, or is that where you're terminating? I did see that there's also there's a sidewalk on Foley Farm Road, but I'm not sure that gets it done either, because you're kind of up against the bank. I think that's in the way, right? Key Bank. So you couldn't necessarily rely on that either to get a connection to the store. And I understand that this is all like probably pretty nitpicky, but I only bring it up because I do believe that this is a population that is going to want to get there. And again, appreciating that you're making an effort to get them most of the way. These just seems like a couple of gaps worth mentioning.
Yeah, fair enough. Although we did not end up actually reaching out to Hannaford, to my knowledge, that decision was only made kind of after we went through that conceptual exercise of, is this feasible? What is the net benefit? And, unfortunately, we don't think that it's going to work in this scenario, but I guess on the good side of things is, they are relatively close, even if they do need to use the sidewalks without the shortcut. But yeah, I mean, in this scenario, I agree. It is a bit of a bummer. We couldn't find even a better route, but we're just kind of working with the cards we were dealt for the existing infrastructure and just trying to upgrade where we can.
Aside from that, I don't have an issue with either of the other waivers, and look forward to this project. I think this will be a really good addition to our community as a whole, and this area in particular. So thanks for coming here.
It looks like Nick got booted another time. So I think you're up, Rachel.
All right. Any other comments from the board?
I just want to say thanks to the developer here, roughing in those electrical conduit for the EV chargers is appreciated. And I want to echo my colleagues by saying the offsite improvements, you're trying to make lemonade out of some decent lemons, and you did a good job with that. So thank you for your efforts. That's all.
All right, thank you, folks. We do have a draft motion. Somehow or other, I'm the one.
Can I jump in, Rachel? Sorry.
Yeah.
To interrupt. Based on your suggestion, I just wanted to run by your comment about the additional seating provisions, and if the applicant was comfortable with that, and if the other board members wanted to weigh in as well, just before we get to the motion.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yep.
Is the applicant comfortable with that first?
Yes, we're definitely comfortable. I think that's a great idea.
Okay. Does the board Board members have any objection to having that, to having Jamel write something quickly and including that in the draft motion? No? All right, now, it's my turn now, Jamel?
Yeah, let me just share my screen because I added a little
Okay.
extra condition. Give me a second here.
While Jamel's pulling that up, the one thing I'll just make mention of, and I know the applicant was has made the request to the board about the extension. You know, we have in our site plan ordinance, we talk about how approval is good for 1 year and it can be approved for another year. In the ordinance, it does talk about that approval being that authority is granted to the town planner, and it's actually not a planning board decision. Clearly, this discussion has indicated that the board is willing and accepting of that idea. And we are typically, the planning department are very open to accepting folks' requests for an additional year. So that, though it may not be reflected in the draft motion, it certainly will be represented in the minutes. And I think the applicant should have some high level of confidence that that would be granted.
All right, thank you, Jay. All right, I will read the draft motion. I move to approve the project titled Jocelyn Place Senior Housing as depicted on the plan set prepared by Acorn Engineering, Inc., dated 7/16/20, with the following findings, waivers, and conditions. Findings: the applicant is proposing to construct a 49,530 square foot three-story building that will consist of 60 affordable one-bedroom apartment units for residents 55 and older. The proposal also includes parking, pedestrian infrastructure, placemaking elements, and stormwater management infrastructure. The project is the first phase of a two-phase project and is located within a proposed modified parcel along Little Dolphin Drive. The affordable housing units address the affordable housing provision of section 20C, C, parens 13 of the Scarborough zoning ordinance. And in accordance with chapter 413 growth management ordinance, the board finds that the project is eligible for allocation of growth permits from the reserve pool. The project located within the town and the village center TBC zoning district and is further identified on the town of Scarborough tax maps as map U45 lots 4A and 4 and 45. The planning board has reviewed the application and supporting documentation and finds that the proposed design of the subdivision adequately addresses the requirements of the subdivision ordinance, site plan review ordinance, and zoning ordinance. Waivers. Number 1, permit the requested parking aisle with width of 24 feet. Conditions. Number 1, prior to the signing and release of the final subdivision plan, the plan set shall be revised to include A, a note within the zoning matrix referencing the required 25-foot side and rear yard setback where the project abuts the R2 zoning district. B, coordinate the civil and landscape plans so they depict the same property boundaries. C, a detail of the proposed bollards associated with the fire lane on the site. D, address the remaining review comments in the civil peer review memo by Woodard and Curran dated 7/30/20. And I'm trying to see where I am. And E or F, additional seating provisions adjacent to the proposed community garden as discussed with the planning board. Have I missed one? Traffic, okay. E, address the remaining review comments in the traffic peer review memo by Traffic Solutions dated 7/29/20. This shall be reviewed and approved by the planning department. 2, prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall A, pay the traffic impact fees, B, pay the recreation contribution fees, C, provide approval by the Portland Water District, D, provide approval by the Scarborough Sanitary District, E, provide an updated mutual easement agreement as noted in the staff review memo dated 8/3/20. F, execute and record the stormwater maintenance agreement as required by the post-construction stormwater infrastructure management ordinance. This shall be reviewed and approved by the planning department. 3, if a site plan review application for the proposed office building, phase 2 of the planned development, is not submitted by September 2022, the applicant shall submit an interim condition plan for this parcel. The plan shall include A, details associated with alternative long-range treatment for stabilizing this property, and B, additional street trees along the northerly side of the proposed driveway and westerly edge of the proposed development. This shall be reviewed and approved by the planning department. 4, prior to the issuance of a sign permit, the applicant shall provide a final signage plan. This shall be reviewed and approved by planning department. 5, prior to the start of construction, a pre-construction meeting is required. The meeting shall include appropriate town staff, the developer, and their site contractor, and is to be coordinated through the planning department. Do I have a second?
Second.
And that was Nick McGee back. Are there any additional board comments? Hearing none, I'll have a roll call. Nick McGee,
Aye.
Rick Weinking,
Aye.
Jen Ladd,
Aye.
Roger Beely,
Yes.
and Rachel Hendrickson, yes. The plan passes unanimously. Congratulations, folks, and we look forward to seeing this finished product. It's going to be a great asset on Oak Hill. Thank you very much.
Thank
And
you
I'll turn the meeting over to Nick McGee.
Great time.
Thank you, Rachel, again. Appreciate it. So items 12 through 16 will be tabled until the next meeting, which is in 21 days, August 24th. Number 17, staff report.
I do have one item to report. Staff did receive an application for a proposed contract zone amendment associated with the Mercedes-Benz property. So staff will be working with scheduling a joint planning board council workshop as part of the amendment process in the coming month or two. I don't know if Jay has anything else to add.
Yep, just one quick item to mention. On August 19th, there will be a workshop with town council. And what it is reporting out of the Downs CEA. And so just for your information, if you wish to attend, you're welcome to, but not something that the planning board is required to attend, but thought you might be interested. Essentially, just so you know, as part of that CEA, there's sort of an annual reporting that goes on in which staff sort of updates the approvals at the Downs, and the Downs updates sort of what's been going on from their side of things as well, all to council. So
Is that 7 o'clock?
Actually, I believe the workshop is going to start at 5 o'clock. I believe it's a two-hour workshop from 5 to 7, or at least scheduled for 2 hours, and then the regular meeting will kick off at 7. So,
Hey, would you mind sending us that information in an email?
sure. Yep.
Yes.
That is all I had.
All right. Do we have an administrative amendment report?
Sure, I have a few to report on, some recent ones. At the new Hospice of Southern Maine site, which has received its certificate of occupancy, they did a new stockade fencing with plantings has been approved administratively to help buffer the new solar panels as seen from the Holy Donut. And then at 180 US Route 1, their formal office, a new fenced enclosure area out in the back of the building for a new daycare center was approved. And then at 66 Gorham Road, the Rock Church, they proposed a new shed on the property to replace the old one, and that was also approved administratively. That's all I have.
Thanks, Jamal. Any correspondence? Planning board comments? No. And next is the motion to adjourn. I will move to adjourn.
Second.
Wait, I have a question, actually. Sorry.
That goes under planning board comments, Miss Ladd.
I know. Let me back up. It's quick.
What do you got?
I'm just curious if there's been any talk whatsoever about us meeting in person again.
It's a great
You're
question.
muted, Jay.
What'd you say?
Yep. Yes, thank you. Yes, town council is working towards potentially holding a meeting on August 19th in person. And really, the direction so far has been that council will sort of take the lead on when we come back. I know our IT department it'll really be a sort of a hybrid meeting because of the spacing constraints we have and the number of people. So it'll be a hybrid type meeting where those who wish to meet in person will be able to, but there'll still be the Zoom option. And so we obviously need to figure out how we're going to arrange applicants and public comment and those sorts of things. But yes, potentially the August 24th meeting could be at least in person, a hybrid in-person type meeting. So I'll be reaching out on that in the next couple of weeks as more details come to fruition on that.
Thanks. Just curious.
Yep.
Thanks, Jay. All right, I had a motion. I believe I had a second. All in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thanks, guys. Hey, great meeting. I appreciate it. All the hard work. You did a nice job this evening. Thank you, guys.
Yep.
Thank you.
Take care now.
Thanks,
Good night.
guys.
Bye-bye.
Good night.